Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Stoughton School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by SMAC for future broadcasting. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Seeing as we have no one signed up, we'll move on to the second. Our student advisory representative is not able to be with us tonight, but hopefully we'll make the next meeting. That brings us to number 3, the superintendent update. Dr. Rayeta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Good evening to everybody, my colleagues. A few different things just to bring you up to date. Thank you. First, and I think really important for all of us going forward, is that on the 21st of this month, which is next week, next Tuesday, we have at Stoughton High School the building committee presentation and open forum to the public. We welcome community members to come to the forum at Stoughton High School at 7 p.m. Also a reminder that the town meeting is February 3rd, also at 7 p.m. at Stoughton High School. So again, the open forum on the 21st with members of the building committee to the general public to discuss updates to the new building at Stoughton High School at 7 p.m. and then town meeting on the 3rd of February at town at the high school, and then pending that vote, a April election. The end of year report has been filed and signed by the chair of the committee. Thank you to all involved. The redistricting committee has established a working group for modular site visits. I have forwarded, per request of the school committee, an update to the district on the homework policy, school safety, and the FY26 budget, as was requested of me to do so in writing. That was done last week. The shelter enrollment is declining pretty much on a daily basis. However, I want to reiterate to the committee that we have concerns about the shelter becoming a homelessness center, because there's also financial implications to that around McKinney-Vento, around students coming in, around supervision, and so on and so forth, that we are not going to be seeing any compensation from the Commonwealth on going forward. So it may be that we need to reach out to our elected delegation with support maybe from the select board through you, if something we want to discuss going forward. We are going to be doing, per your request, and also updates. We have not done some updates to transportation. I know you're working with the policy, the use of facilities, and we also have to take a look at an update to the master plan. This March 25 will be 2 years since you've reviewed the master plan. So this coming March or April, we should at least review it and consider if you want to bring back that committee or a new committee of appointees to take a look at updating it, which would be actually important because it's going to be aligning with our review of a capital needs and safety plan, or safety review. So for your information, the Stoughton Teachers Association has communicated their approval of both 25-26 recommendations for the school calendar for next year, which is part of their contract. They are recommending the option of coming back on the Monday instead of opening up on the Friday, which, to be quite honest, I concur with. You've received an HR staffing update from Mr. C's office. You'll be getting those now on a regular basis. If there's nothing to report for the end of the month, you'll get a memo that says nothing to report. If there's something to report, you'll get the memo with any updates and changes. And then lastly, working through Ms. Powers, thank you for the flexibility, Karen. With CPAC, we're going to be doing some visits on the 28th and the 6th to some of our specialized area classrooms to really take a look at some equity and continuity of services, and probably have to create some changes going forward. I know at least one school we're going to be working on changes for next year already, because I just met with the SPED department on it. We also know, and the principals know, that those 2 dates are going to be tight to stay to that schedule, but at the same time, if we need to just say, no, we can't go, we just have to call the principal, say we're not coming, and we schedule it for a different date. So I just want to make sure that Karen, back to the CPAC, that it's flexible. It's just a matter of having the principals there. Okay? That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Yeah, Armando.
Actually, I have,
Here.
Tanya. Thank you, this is great. Of course, you also have a new job, huh?
Armando, Mike?
Sorry. I was wondering on the back of the page here, where we have the information, I wonder if there was any common link among them, or?
So, yeah, I wouldn't say that there is a common link. I think you have a combination of folks who are changing careers, maybe one who's deciding not to actually teach and go into something else, but I wouldn't say any real common links. There's a staff exit interview form that we've added to the website, the HR page. We've gotten some responses from that, and then whenever possible, I try to speak to folks who've resigned. And I would kind of call these, you know, kind of typical folks are deciding to either change careers or be a little closer to home. Yeah.
And next follow-up question is, do you feel all of these, I know one of them has to be filled, a math teacher. I was wondering if the other ones, if there's any position that we can go without for a while.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those are all pretty needed to fill. Yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you, through Matt, and then Mr. Barboza. The back of the page, LC-based RN, SHS Unit A, new position, that is actually coming from contract services. So I just want you to make sure that you know that the money was there, but it was in contract services. What was happening is we were not able to get that nurse in on a regular basis for student services, so we moved it into the position.
Is that a similar cost, or does it reflect savings? Or
Reflects savings.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Christy?
Thank you. I had a question for Matt that may have ramifications for Heidi. Are there any plans to post these publicly?
Yes, yep. Some of them have been posted publicly.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Because I love that, and I think it helps to provide additional layer of transparency, and also helps to promote some of the benefits of hiring choices or positions that are added, so.
Yeah, I think all these are posted publicly right now. School Spring and Indeed.
Oh, no, I mean the memo.
Oh, the memo.
The
Huh.
memo.
Oh,
Of
the
course, I know
memo.
the positions are
Of course.
posted publicly,
Oh.
unless you have nephews and cousins that will fill them out.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about posting the memo publicly. It was really for you folks, but
Okay.
Well, it becomes a matter of public record if it's submitted to us, so
Yeah.
it is now.
it is posted publicly.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is posted publicly.
Consider it still publicly posted.
Yes.
There we go. Clarification from the superintendent, the date of the form is the 21st, next Tuesday. I thought I heard Wednesday, and then I heard the 21st, so I just want to make sure I'm.
Yeah, for clarification, it'll be Tuesday, January 21st.
Got it, okay.
At 7 PM. Thank you.
All right, Ed. And then my third question for the superintendent is, I had made a request way back in the previous year to include a quick summary, roll-up summary of grants in the fiscal year. Any new grants that have been added, and then what the total amount of awarded grants to date.
Sorry, Chris, about that. I do have a working document with that. We'll get that out to you sooner than later.
Karen, any questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
So McKinney-Vento is the legislation that requires that we provide transportation to students experiencing homelessness if they are previously attending school in Stoughton. And I know, I'm just thinking what you had said about the hotel potentially being used as a homeless shelter. I know that DESE has McKinney-Vento grants, right? Is that something that we've explored or are exploring or have available to us? I don't know if that's like whoever can answer that.
Multiple people could probably answer that,
Yeah.
but I'm going to start. So yes, every McKinney-Vento grant available, I think we have explored.
Okay.
we're in the process of spending one right now, FC 310, to add some services to our central registration office for homeless students and families, some contracted services for social work, some signage, multiple languages with services, translators, and family liaisons, all from the grant. So with the 2 shelters coming to Stoughton, we've gone from a low-incident homeless student district to a high-incident district. And, yeah, I would say every single grant opportunity for districts with homeless students, we've at least attempted to secure, so.
Okay,
yeah.
so we're doing our homework and,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, that's all.
And I can say even in the last week, we picked up an initial allocation of $202,000 based on our newcomer students and really to backfill expenses that we experience, such as like technology, like Chromebooks and classroom furniture and other things related to the curriculum. And I believe we just got bumped up by another $48,000. We put an additional request on that grant. The thing that is tough, though, is the biggest continuing cost we're going to see is transportation. Because if a student goes to the shelter and registers here, or our student, they go someplace else, we're responsible for transportation back. And really, if a student moves to the shelter here in Stoughton and continues to attend the school they previously attended, we're still on the hook for half of the transportation cost. So that in and of itself is really the concerning factor of the shelter being here above and beyond kids enrolling at our school and, the services we need to provide to give them a fair opportunity to be successful here. But transportation is the thing that's concerning.
And we did, in this $249,000 grant we just received for the shelter situation, we did file for a minivan van for $90,000, but we were rejected. And simply that's because right now the beginning of the shelter situation is declining enrollment. I think if this grant had become available to us 18 months ago, the story probably would have been different, and we then could have worked on things like McKinney-Vento costing us significantly less money, even with a part-time driver and gas. With that vehicle paid for up front, you're not paying, in some cases, $10,000 a month for one student to be transported.
And if I could add one more thing in, the majority of the funding we get through grants isn't something we can use to offset our actually budgetary costs. So although we picked up $200,000 and, we can pick up furniture, we can pick technology, we can't pay for salaries out of it. And, we really still have that basic responsibility. So although it's great and we can backfill some things, it doesn't address needs in the moment, and it doesn't address a lot of the costs related to just providing instruction or basic needs.
Okay, thank you, that's really helpful. I just think it's a federal requirement, so just want to make sure we're talking about why and what it is entailed there and what it could mean down the road for the district.
Armando, question?
Yes, this is probably a look into the crystal ball question. Given that the hotels might be going to homeless facilities, do you anticipate the same number of students as we had as the migrants, or how does that normally work out?
Yeah, emergency shelter situations are very different than what it would have been originally was called a migrant shelter situation. So this is in most cases students that may be involved with homelessness via literally their home went up in flames to DCF custody and waiting for a placement, or that becomes a temporary placement. Most of the hotels in the past throughout the state that have been used for this has been, it can run for the remainder of this year, it can run an entire year. If it happened in September, it could be that situation is taking place. So when you look at the crystal ball, the concern I have was we had a huge influx of students that came in through this process of sheltered migrant students, original called, so these hotels had an opportunity to become shelters. Now the question is there a difference between the definition of shelter and homelessness? And I would argue that there is, because they're now working with a very different population of students, not just migrant students, but more than likely citizens and residents of the Commonwealth. So it's concerning.
Yeah, I was just wondering, my basic assumption is that hotels tend to want to be full all the time.
Right.
And I'm thinking if we can get an estimate of one child per room and how many rooms, get an idea of how many students we would expect coming?
The expectation of the student is that the student may be at the shelter, at the homeless center, homeless shelter, I'll call, in Stoughton, but they actually are a student in Fall River. So we end up paying 50% of that cost because they're residing in this town, quote, but they're going to school in Fall River. So the two institutions of education split the cost for the transport of that student. In some cases, the student could be ours. So then the cost for us is potentially we're picking them up and dropping them off at school. We see actually that happen here as well. So you have a student whose family becomes homeless because of a situation, and so McKinney-Vento kicks in, and we have to provide them transportation from their current new home, whatever it may be, Weymouth or one of the hotels. So, I mean, I don't anticipate these numbers to be like 130 like we've had with the other situation, but it could easily be 15, 20, 25. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but this past year, we had a situation of a split cost with Fall River that was $10,000 a month. It's $100,000 to transport one student.
And what people have to understand is the transportation set up from students at the shelter going back to their home district, we're not involved in it, but we're legally required to pay 50% of the cost. So if you have a district that can't find transportation vendors, or they're getting gouged and just acquiesce to it and are willing to pay that fee, it might be something that we would never entertain, but we're still legally obligated to pay 50% of that cost, whether we like it or not, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's the challenge.
Thank you.
I had a question about the Power School data breach. Do we have an update on that? I know we had the cybersecurity situation at the workshop.
Yes.
Just like the same thing was happening.
Thank you for bringing that up. So the Power School situation happened right around the 22nd or 23rd of December is what we've been informed. And information came out to us last Tuesday, and we received two different pieces of information. Our first to Anthony in the technology department was an email saying that we were not part of it. The very next day, to Bob in technology, we were part of it. We then have been attending any of the meetings that they've been provided about the breach and so on and so forth. We then did have, in the old system, when people were hired, Social Security numbers. That has hit, and again, we don't know if they were taken or utilized, but the fact is we've communicated now with two current employees, thank you, Matt, and then approximately 17 or 18 former employees that their Social Security number may have been hacked. The next thing that will happen, more than likely, typically, I know it's happened to me personally, is the company will take on the lead of the credit bureaus and contacting and registering your information and so on and so forth. And then you can, anytime your Social Security number or information like that comes up, you get a text message or an email or whatever way you decided to set it up. Same thing with your banking. That can also be, I currently, a year later, still get text messages from my bank saying, you know, we've noted that this could be fraud, please review, and then say yes or no. So that should be coming out of Power School. I will also tell you that the cybersecurity in DC, whatever the name of that office, I don't have it in front of me, is also asking questions. The Attorney General's office is asking questions. There's some discussions about breach of contract by Power School because of their late notification to districts. And we no longer, and haven't for a number of years now, utilized Power School with any type of information directly related to things like Social Security. However, when it comes to student information, one of the things that you're looking at is any type of medical information that could have been shared, i.e. the student uses an EpiPen, and if that's potentially noted in our Power School, was that all taken? Also, lastly, Power School did pay a ransom, is my understanding. I don't know how public that is. I don't know if it happened or not, but supposedly all of the information was destroyed. It is now all on Power School for the next step. I can tell you this, it hasn't been easy to get information. It has not been easy to get information. So we'll have more information going out to staff and families over the next 24 to 48 hours as we get it. Anthony Fippen, our administrator for technology, is the lead person for us on this. None of that information right now is being seen out there, but the fact is, it doesn't matter that it wasn't a breach and that any of this information couldn't come up. For any of those of us that have seen this, it typically, nothing happens, but the fact of the matter is, that's why the credit bureaus and those registrations are become important. But it was not a Stoughton Public Schools breach. That's, I think, important to communicate. Thank you for asking.
It's interesting that it comes at a time when we had those text messages sent to students that seem to be targeted and questions about how that data may or may not have been accessed. And so that's concerning that we have, there's some accusations that, or some thoughts that some of that data was scrubbed from social media sites where there is some identifying information available there, but just very concerning that this is kind of a real concern. And we had that cybersecurity. Were you able to attend these Chris, were you able to attend the cyber? No. Yes. So that was, I hope that was helpful, but it is kind of concerning that seems to be a number of possibilities for this data to be captured.
I had
Yes.
a quick question related to that. I was wondering, Superintendent, if Power School has actively committed to taking a lead to contacting credit reporting agencies, because our family has received, I would say, 4 or 5 notifications just in the past 3 weeks, including our 2 children when they were minors were impacted, and all they said is, we recommend that you review your credit reports. None of them are now actively taking accountability and contacting credit bureaus. So I just wanted clarification on that.
So that's what we are seeking as partners and the clients of, and by we, I mean public school systems throughout the nation. What we're seeking is the Power School taking the lead in doing the communicating. Of course, they'll probably have to utilize us in some way, shape, or form, which is fine. But that's the intent, is that they take the lead on making sure that that information is getting to the right hands at the right people at the right time, so that folks can do what they need to do with it. Some people choose to do nothing. Most people do something with it.
Can you keep us updated?
I will.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
I was wondering if we know, probably have to contact technology, if we know if there was any information stored in Power School that can allow access to our internal systems, like passwords and so on, password files and such.
So what we did is, it's our understanding, because this was a backdoor breach, the fact of the matter, through a third party, the fact is that what we're doing now is we're in the process of changing all of that information for folks. So that'll be coming out as we get the updates. But no, we have not received information. It's just, for example, I just recently, to Chris's comment, I just recently received one about my email, private email. And so the first thing I did is, it's still the same email, but I changed my password.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people would also change their email address. So yes, we'll be working through all of that. We are already. It's just a matter of timing and making sure that Power School is giving us the correct information.
And could I, if I could add something? We did for our administrators and for the faculty, we've been moving to a 2-factor authentication system. So all the administrators now, if you're going to log into your account, where you actually can then access, what's in Power School, and to get to more sensitive areas, you actually need to use a thumb drive and put it in the machine and punch yourself into the system when you sign in. So that, in fact, protects a lot of our information, even if if my password was compromised. If you're not on my machine that's set up that I've already punched into, you can't actually use it to access our system. So the most sensitive areas are, in fact, protected. So if the business office, Matt's office, my office, anything in central office. So, the timing was great, but that system just needs to continue to roll along to everybody else, so we have that level of security for everyone.
Yeah, a good example, not to use the same password in multiple systems. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's move on to new business. The first is the use of facilities request from Congregation Pearl. This is kind of a request we haven't seen recently, which is a use of facilities request from a church to hold a religious service at the high school auditorium. I believe this is over Easter weekend. We have kind of the policy covering the use of facilities. Here, that wasn't included in the packet. I also reviewed policy KF, which is the school committee policy covering the use of facilities. What we have in the packet elaborates further. This is not something we have seen before, but they are simply applying at this point for a use of facilities permit. They're not applying for any other considerations. They would just like to be able to use this. Any additional information? Can I hit on Ms. Miller?
Yeah, so these types of policies come out of federal law that's been in place for quite a long time, except for the rules around the individual use, alcohol, tobacco, having lit candles and all stuff. You can put all of that into play in your policy, but in terms of saying no because it's a religious affiliation, you do not have the right to say no to that. So I believe that this is a little bit of a fact-finding by this organization as well to kind of figure out how much is this really going to cost me if we do this. As you can see from their application, they're not charging a fee for folks. They're estimating 500 people. They're not charging a fee. But there is a cost associated to them for using the facility and for custodial coverage as well, which right now my recommendation would be to utilize your policy to follow those.
All organizations have to pay custodial fees, so we can't waive those, but that certainly is something that's required. I did have, what is the capacity of the high school auditorium? Oh, okay, so this is, okay, more than sufficient. I knew you would know off the top of your head.
Less than the numbers.
Yes. Yes. All right.
868.
The only question I did have about this is that there is no food or drink in the auditorium, and just concerning, questioning if they would be able to perform their full ceremony without the use of any food or drink. I recognize that it is maybe considered something else, and that's capacity, but.
Yeah, the only thing you would have on there would be if it's being utilized for the purposes of the religious activity, i.e. communion,
Yes.
bread and water, or something like that. Otherwise, no.
No.
That's they would have to follow that protocol, and that's one of the reasons I think, another reason to have 3 custodians on duty is you want somebody that would be clearly identifying those protocols.
Hey, Catherine?
Yes.
I have, I read through the policy. I think this is the first time I've actually read through this policy. And there are many changes I like to see. Should I just communicate that to the policy committee and see what they think at any time? Can I do that?
I think so. I mean, I think, given that this would be 3 people, I think the best thing to do is maybe email it to Jonathan, and then he can bring it to the policy working group. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it has not been revised since in 10 years.
Yeah.
2013,
Yes.
2014.
It needs a massive revision,
Right,
right?
I think you would mentioned already that this is one of the ones that we need to revisit.
We would love your comments.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
I'll get it to you through Jonathan.
Yes.
This is an interesting policy, because this policy has never actually resided with me, with our policy working group. It's always been held separately. And you'll notice it's not coded
Right.
in our system, because I don't believe this actually exists in our policy manual.
It
So I
doesn't.
think this is a wonderful opportunity to pull it back in the fold and make the adjustments you're looking for.
Okay.
All right. If nothing else comes of this, we now have this, a new policy to revisit. Yes. Any questions about this specific request? All right.
Catherine,
Yes.
one thing. I noticed that some of the things in the policy are not in the application. They should be. I don't know if the group that's going to rent the facility has a copy of the policy, because they won't know what their policy is if they only get the application.
I'm not exactly sure what happens, but I know there's a lot of coordination with the central office about using the facility. I assume they receive all the information.
They do.
Yeah, Leanne Kerman,
Yes.
she deals with people on a one-on-one basis with this. So anything that comes in, she contacts them directly, discusses everything. So there's no mystery, there's no surprises, everything's wide open in terms of personal conversation.
I'd just like the application to be attached to the back of the policy stapled, and so they go through the policy, then there's the application in the back to fill out.
I'm 99% sure they're provided with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
99.9%.
thank you.
I just want to add one comment. As the policy committee decides to review this, adhering to making sure that there's a sign-off on the bullying law and the harassment law should be part of the application process going forward. Those are federal and state mandates. The bullying one's a mandate. In other words, it covers up that if there was an incident of bullying during an actual event, we've said to them that, that's a violation of our policy, therefore putting the liability back on them and not on us. But that would be a sign-off, by the way, on both of those. Somebody needs to read it and put their John Hancock as the person responsible for that stuff. And the only other thing would be, doesn't have to be in your policy, probably shouldn't be, should probably be in your handbook, but we do have to take a look at rates for use of school facilities, because according to page 9, you have not had a review of the charges since May 13th, 2014. So a $38 custodial
It's a
a
bargain.
$38 custodial charge 10 years ago would mean that you are able to put a couple of dollars into your facility's revolving account after paying the custodian. Today, there are events that you're losing money.
Yeah. And
This was regarding the old high school.
Yes.
Yes, for example, the turf field needs to be clarified here, and the cost for that is a lot more than what's noted on here.
You feel important?
Yeah, and the policy states it's taken into account the operating costs. If you're doing anything on operating costs, you're essentially giving it away for free. Wear and tear is not taken into account.
Yeah, the use of facilities, we need to change from a use of facilities just policy into actually a handbook of what's required. Like I said earlier, the anti-bullying, the harassment, you can charge for whatever you want and then not charge if you don't want to because they're a not-for-profit group. But you should at least have it in that handbook for the public to know, and then the committee can always decide how it wants to act.
Yep.
All right. All right, well, if there are no other questions about this particular request, if you have comments, I know Mr. Ford would enjoy hearing from them for the policy working group. Do I have a motion to approve the use of facilities request from Congregation Pearl?
So moved.
All right. So that was moved by Lindsay. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Armando. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 5-0. If you're laughing, it's because we're trying to figure out who goes first in this new arrangement, so. The next item on our agenda is the Stoughton High School Program of Studies presentation, and I'd like to hand the microphone over to Ms. Miller.
Good evening. We have some exciting changes in the program of studies. There are quite a few of them. I'm happy to take your questions as we go. And we have talked before, we implemented a new schedule this school year, and last year we had started talking as a district about adding to our school programming at the high school more CVTE programming, pathways, classes that would lead to certificates, more dual enrollment opportunities, more internships. And so what you might see as we go through here, and I'll try to point those instances out when I recall them, is that we have started that foundational work in this program of studies. So the beginnings of those pathways, the beginnings of those conversations, the beginning of those programs, we have some beginnings in program of studies for those pathways and those items and opportunities. So that's exciting. We are operating obviously within the staffing that we have. So some of these classes, as always, may not run. Our courses run based on student selection and how they choose their courses. And so, these the breadth of this may not always run each year, but we do have a lot of opportunity for our kiddos, and so I'm excited to talk about them. All right. So I gave you a little cheat sheet to hopefully make the process a little bit more easy for you. We have suggested some language change to include information about the AP exam fee. That first change is on page 7, and we want to make sure that our families understand that when we sign up for AP exams, that they are expected to take the AP exam, which is already in the program of studies, but that also, there's a cost to that exam as well, that the family absorbs as part of that, that opportunity, as is typical for all College Board exams like SATs and AP exams. They all go together. Families pay for those on their own. But we did also include language about those students that might have, the cost might be an extreme hardship for them, and so that we have opportunity for that. So you'll see that there's language added on page 7 regarding that, and then also that on page 7, it's directing you to page 13, and on page 13, where the language is added there, it directs students to understand that in those cases, they can reach out to their school counselor for assistance on how they can cover those costs. We certainly don't want the cost of an exam to be a reason that a student does not strive for that opportunity. So we've suggested those language changes in those pages. On page 8, this is our recommendation for how to address the competency determination requirement. As many people know that with the most recent election, the people of the Commonwealth spoke and have removed MCAS as a graduation requirement for our students. However, the MCAS exam itself is under federal statute and will continue. So all of our students, pre-K through 12 or wherever it begins, 3, will be still taking the MCAS. It will not count towards graduation for our students, but it does count for schools. We are accountable for those results. So we will still be encouraging our students to do the very best that they can. But by removing the MCAS as a graduation requirement, schools were then charged after the election to determine a way for students to meet the competency determination. In the federal statute, students have to show that they are proficient, basically, in math, English, and science. And so the MCAS used to be the way they did that. Now that that's no longer a mechanism for achieving that, school districts have to come up with a new solution. So the high school has suggested that we put some language into the program of studies. Now, on page 8, where you'll see the high school graduation requirements, I'll just draw your attention to item number 1, total minimal course credits, and item number 2, subject-specific coursework. Those have always been in the program of studies. And item number 3, competency determination, has always been in the program of studies as well, except the language prior to this said you had to pass the MCAS exam. So now we are suggesting that all students must complete the MCAS state testing in English, mathematics, and science, or in some cases, the alternate portfolio. And again, we're saying complete, we're not saying pass. That is encouraging our students to continue to complete the exams, because as I mentioned, we are accountable for them. But then all students must pass designated coursework in English language arts, mathematics, and science. And the coursework that we are suggesting is the 20 credits in English, which they have to pass anyways. They have to take 20 credits of English regardless. But those credits should include English 9, 10, 11, and 12, or their equivalents. Now, like, for example, all of our 12th grade students don't take a course called English 12. Some opt to take 2 semester English classes to make them their English credits. So that's why we want to make sure that we have or equivalents in there. They should take 20 credits of mathematics, which should include algebra, geometry, and some version of Algebra 2. In our course catalog, we have a couple of different versions of Algebra 2. We have Algebra 2 as a full-year course. We have Honors Algebra 2. We have Algebra 2 over 2 years. We have an integrated Geometry/Algebra 2 course. So those would all be the equivalents that would be reached. And then 17.5 credits of a lab science, which include biology or its equivalent. And students have lots of science courses to choose, but we do want to have some baseline in having at least one science course required, and that would be biology, which is also the test they would likely take for MCAS. Any questions about that?
Go ahead.
I think I've asked this in the years past. If a student takes some credit in the college over the summer, or some of the other prep programs like Kumon or RSM, and they feel they're relatively at a level that, at least at the level that the high school provide, is there any provisions at all that does law prevent from testing out of a particular subject that they know very well that they can test out of, and allowing them to take another subject instead of in its place during the time slot?
We don't have any way for students to test out of a subject, so we don't have an assessment necessarily. But if a student transfers us from another school or takes a course, as you suggest, in a college or some other program, and they come to the high school with that information, and we can document the coursework that is included within that title, we can, make some additions to that transcript that reflect that, which means they would then not take that course that's equivalent at the high school. They would skip that for something else.
Would they get the credit, though?
They would get the credit, yes. Yes.
So just a clarification, this has always been the discussion around dual enrollment versus early college. So the pushback on dual enrollment has always been that it hasn't been, that course quote hasn't been pre-vetted, it's being post-vetted. Versus early college, you have an agreement that that course, that early college class that the student is taking either on-site or off-site, is in fact been connected to our program of studies and pre-approved as meeting the need of whatever the course is, an elective or even a core course, a fourth year of math, let's say, or something like that. The other thing on the competency determination language that's before you is we currently now will have, I'm using the number 351, even though they're not 351 high schools in the Commonwealth. We do have 351 cities and towns, which means we now have 351 different definitions of the competency determination, except for the basics that come from DESE, which used to also include the MCAS test. At Friday's Urban Superintendent's Network meeting, which I now go to and Matt attends on my behalf when I'm not available, the commissioner spoke around trying to come up with some language in the future to help districts, including adding more specifics around two areas. One, adding world language, and two, adding a social studies. Now, I find it interesting that since the competency determination has been in place, that U.S. history was not part of it, considering that under the Massachusetts Constitution, it's one of the only required classes that you must take. You don't have to pass it, but you have to take it. I also find it interesting that for the competency determination, you have to take physical education on a yearly basis, but that was never put in there. So I think this whole competency determination thing from the Commonwealth is going to be changing. Here's the one change that won't happen. Stoughton High School's requirements for graduation are higher than the competency determination, have always been and will always continue to be. So keep that in mind as people are talking about competency determinations versus our local requirements. Thank you.
I was going to talk about this hardship. So on the hardship, thank you. So when you talk about the hardship, extreme hardship, I want to ensure that if students want to take a high-level course, they can take a high-level class. I know we've had the conversation, just repeating it for the sake of everyone. So just putting that quantifier in front of hardship, I don't know if they have to have extreme hardship, because some people might, that's a subjective word. So students are reading this and they're like, I don't have an extreme hardship, but I know that my parents can't afford a $100 AP fee at the end of the year, so I'm not going to take AP. I wonder if there's still some room to just take out the extreme and just say hardship, and then maybe my hope would be that some kids would be like, well, if my parent can't do it, maybe I can still talk to them, because even though we don't have an extreme hardship, I have a hardship. So I don't know if anyone else has a comment on that. I would just like to take out the word extreme out of page 7 and 13. And just have it say hardship. I know it's a small thing. I don't know if if we need approval on that, or just we do it?
Clarify with financial?
It's financial, yes, so it reads, and are responsible for the associated AP exam fee, except in the case of extreme hardship.
So can we replace the word extreme with financial, just to specify?
Yeah, I mean,
I have a
it's-
hardship when it comes to testing and require, you know. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
the sentence itself is talking financial. So it's
Gotcha.
in the makeup
Okay.
of the sentence.
I actually don't think, through you to Karen, I don't actually think that's a problem. The fact of the matter is that the definition of hardship is, I know for a fact we're going to have families who have hardship that won't even come forward, and that's concerning, right?
Yes.
It's a AP is a wonderful thing. It's also a wonderful big business. And I have a problem with it because I do think that there should be some further availability from the Commonwealth as we're trying to meet high academic standards of the Commonwealth, coming out with some ways to really deal with some of this stuff, specifically around the comment you just made, around the hardship. Because if you have one student taking 3 APs, you got a over $300 bill, if I remember correctly. That, the reason for not taking a second AP could be the $200 versus $100 for any one family. And we don't want that. So I concur with your recommendation. I think that's a good way to go.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent.
Can I just ask a question about the competency determination? I'm wondering, so 2 questions really. One is process, and actually I guess they're both process. Can you walk us through how we got to this specific set of recommendations? I know we've touched on that a little bit, but just want to make sure it's really clear for folks who might be watching based on, MCAS is still, you already addressed that part, but just why like this particular set of classes and why this is like a good replacement for the MCAS requirement.
Okay,
that-
absolutely. Yeah, we already require 20 credits of English, 20 credits of math, and 17 and a half or 3.5 years of lab science. Those are our standards that our kids are already meeting, and as Dr. Baeda mentioned, we are already higher than the state's requirements in terms of graduation. So that's already a high level for our students to achieve. The statute itself talks about competency determination in English, math, and science, so that's why we've chosen English, math, and science here. And then the typical course sequence are the courses that are stated there, and in order to have some consistency among students, stating and being explicit for our families, so that when they're going through the course catalog and they're, oh, well, why don't we take Stand and Deliver? Well, that's not really the course we need for this. That's something we could take if we have an elective, but in order to meet our competency determination, we really need English 12, right? So being very specific to them. And the same thing with like the science, choosing biology. All of our 9th graders are going to come in and take biology. So it's one core course that all students will take. It's a course that also matches up with the science MCAS exam, and so that would amply prepare them to be able to take that exam. Again, not for graduation requirement, but for our accountability, and they do have to take it.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. I know it's kind of redundant, but I appreciate the really explicit
Yeah.
explanation. My second question is more process-oriented on our end. My understanding of the new competency determination requirement, so I want to check this understanding, is that it's the school committee's responsibility to set it. A, is that correct? B, by approving the program of study, do we do that? And B, C, do we need to do a separate vote, just in terms of process here?
So the competency determination was originally driven by the Commonwealth and just literally added into our program of studies. However, now, there is no MCAS requirement, and what we're recommending is that the participation in the MCAS is your local decision of that competency determination.
So at your recommendation,
Right.
we approve?
Right, so by approving the program of studies with the CD in it, you can take it as 1 vote or 2 votes, it's really up to you.
Okay.
The key here is actually not going to be, it starts right away with a class of 25. There is no retest coming up, right? And so we have to really track our students who haven't passed MCAS to make sure that they're meeting, that they've actually taken the tests, and also that they're meeting the minimum requirements that we have within the competency determination and within our, which are pretty much aligned. the issue is now, what is going to be the process for students who started to graduate going back when MCAS came into play? We've always, at one point, had to reach out to those students, even if they were 40, 30, or 19, and got a certificate of attainment, but not a high school diploma. We're going to have to come up with an internal process of reviewing those transcripts for any student who wants to come forward, and have a process in place of how they have now met the competency determination. Because more than likely, they took the test 3 times, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, never passed the math test. And, sorry, Julie, and as a former math teacher.
No, always gets a bad rap.
Math always gets picked on, I'm sorry. And at one point, as science was added, so now we have to determine when science was added versus when it was just English and math. And now we have to say, did those students actually meet the now new defined competency determination? Or is there going to be something that we are adding in order to go backwards for those students? And so we are going to be awaiting, if you will, some process questions from the state. This was all at the meeting the other day with the acting commissioner. So the question would be, what process do we do that? What responsibilities do we have? We're hoping to get some advice from DESE in the coming weeks on how to handle that. The other part is, if you're doing a competency determination that no longer has passing the MCAS, then the question is, are you backfilling it with something else? Or is it a transcript review and whatever? We don't know yet. We're in a real catch-22 situation. What we do know is that for the class we're currently in and going forward, we can define that really easily. The debate's going to be going backwards. How do we handle that? I mean, remember, MCAS has been around long enough for somebody to be probably very close to 40 years of age. I can't do the math in my head, but, and there's been different rules around all along, right? In terms of just passing it. By the way, EPPs, the education plans, proficiency plans are gone. I actually thought that was interesting, how language wasn't added into the competency determination, that we had to sign off, in fact, that the classes they're taking are considered at minimum college preparatory, blah, 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 but that's not going to happen either. So there's a lot going on with this vote that wasn't thought of before we actually all voted, regardless of how we voted. And most importantly, I don't think that we, as adults, so that's the superintendent, the building principal, school committee members, high school teachers, understand that our accountability as a school, and therefore one school defines the district, is now in play with this test no longer being required, I think, at a difficult level. That's one of the reasons why we put down participation in the assessment. And we hope that our students will take it seriously, because the outcome of those tests could label us low performing or high performing, as we did this year. So for the policy wonks, this is a lot to do.
I worked in school districts where the high-stakes test was required, but not for graduation.
Yeah.
So, good luck with that. I did have a question. So I hadn't even considered that this may have retroactive application.
Right.
Aren't you, though? Isn't it comparing a student to a cohort where they would have had similar expectations for that particular cohort?
Yeah.
What does that do, like, to class rankings, for example, if, I'm confused.
The confusion, and again, Matt was with me, feel free to speak freely, Matt. I mean, we're talking about the biggest districts in the Commonwealth, the most diverse districts in the Commonwealth are in the room, and we are really baffled by what the next steps are going to mean. What we're hearing is process, create process, but create process is great, but like you said, is it retroactive? Do I require something else of those students so that it's more equitable, I guess. I think one of the concerns that I have is students who were in the certificate of attainment process, i.e. they were probably taking the MCAS alt, the likelihood of earning a high school diploma was more significant for them because of their significant learning challenges. So this is our, top 1% of our most academically challenged students. What does that mean now at the local level in terms of getting those students to that diploma? Because they're taking different classes. They may be taking vocational, and so on and so forth. Now, you'll see in the next part of the presentation that Ms. Miller and the gang is moving in a direction of really looking at this as more encompassing in terms of other classes or other opportunities for students with pathways to take. But we don't have, Chris, a really good answer yet. I think it's going to be, we're hoping by the springtime to have better answers, but this is all coming after a vote that went into effect December 5th, 30 days after the vote, and no real true answers. That's my best answer for you, sorry.
Can I just, having been there with Dr. Baeta on Friday, and I did a breakout group, a competency determination breakout group with, I'll say 7 districts. And they're all sort of in the same place, so this thing was, voted, MCAS is out, and so now we make our own competency determination, and everyone's a little bit all over the place, but then there's commonalities too. So there was one document that was kind of shared with what districts are doing, and to bring it back to this program studies, it's very much what Julie's suggesting here. It's a combination of coursework, and most high schools are requiring rigorous coursework beyond a competency determination. Some are saying, yep, we want them to participate in the MCAS as a requirement, no score necessary, but so there was commonality there with the English and math and science, because those were the competency determinations. So what do we have that sort of meets that? So everyone wasn't on the same page. It was fascinating to see, all the ideas with how to catch the students, and it's just interesting how it was literally the same test, and now it's like, 351 varieties.
One of the discussions that's come up after Friday's meeting that I thought was leads to an interesting discussion, and that is if you are attending a state college, university, 2-year, 4-year, the AccuPlacer's in play, which is a minimum standards assessment that is basically has a cut score that says if you beat this cut score, you don't have to take a remedial math class, you don't have to take a remedial English writing class. So some districts have literally said, well, is that something that we consider for, quote, going backwards, if that's what's going to happen or not? Or is it something that even you do going forward? So there's a lot here. And there's if you haven't read the Boston Globe, there's at least 2 articles in the last 2 days having a lot of questions about what's happening in Massachusetts with this.
I have an easy question. I've always wondered why science hasn't risen to the point of requiring 20 credits. It's 17.5 in our modern science day. I would figure by this time science would have come up a little bit.
Most of our students do take 20 credits. We just give that little bit of wiggle room for those students who aren't necessarily science inclined and aren't choosing to go in that path.
Okay, thanks.
And I should also note, too, going back to the MCAS conversation, quickly that. Thank you. I should also go back to the MCAS for a second to note that the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship is still a thing that's in play for our students. So that is an incentive for our students to do well on the MCAS, as they still have that opportunity for free state tuition.
You gotta say that louder. A lot louder.
All right. Okay. The next changes are adding to our program of studies these career connection depictions, really. Our college and career counselor, Ashley Guba, went through our course catalog. Again, this is part of our trying to develop these sort of pathways and ideas for our kiddos, where this isn't necessarily all the different pathways we have. There's certainly more here than we could ever really formalize, but it is, gives our students and families the opportunity to say, well, what kinds of things might you be interested in after high school? Oh, I might want to go into business administration. Oh, then you should be taking these courses, financial literacy, you should try to dabble in those courses. If you wanted to do agriculture, maybe you should be looking at wellness and economics and environmental science. So these are simple diagrams or listings for our students to take a look at, so as they're making choices over the next 4 years, they can sort of plan appropriately and make sure they're hitting the things that they will meet their interests and their passions. All right. Yeah. So let's get into sort of the meat and potatoes of the courses here. So like I started off the presentation, there are some significant rewrites that we are suggesting. Again, this is working towards the overall goal down the future of having some pathways and, of course, making courses that are interesting to our students. In some cases, departments surveyed students with courses to, the business department did, the English department did, to decide what kinds of things students were interested in. We also took a good look at our course selection numbers over the past few years, which courses really haven't flown with our kids, which ones are students sort of moving away from. They may have been a big hit 10 years ago, but they've sort of lost interest, and so that we can always sort of keep up with our kids' interests and the future careers that we can't even name yet. 50 years from now, there'll be all kinds of things out there that we haven't even imagined. So in business, we're suggesting to remove sports and entertainment marketing and retail marketing and business. And although those might be favored, you'll see that those courses are being looped into some of the new courses later on. So never fear, they're still kind of there. Accounting, financial literacy 2, again, we'll talk about financial literacy 1, and perhaps that'll ease any concerns you have about that. Digital tools for cyber world and Microsoft Office. One of the other things that we are striving to do this year through the program of studies is removing term classes and expanding those term classes to semester classes wherever we can. Term classes wreak havoc on our master schedule and cause a problem for students to get classes they want. Because we have very few term classes, they don't necessarily match up with other term classes. That creates structured learnings in our schedule, which is a whole different problem. But then also it closes students out of other semester classes because they have to have a term class, and sometimes those split and they don't line up. So it gets kind of messy for our kiddos, and so we are working to eliminate those. And so that's why we're removing digital tools for cyber world. It's also very outdated at this point. Our kids come to us very well equipped digitally. We are, in that vein of removing term classes, we are suggesting that we increase financial literacy from a single term to a semester course. And so by going from term to semester, that's why we would be eliminating financial literacy 2. We wouldn't need that now. Yes, Armando.
I found it surprising that Microsoft Office is being eliminated. I thought that was the workhorse of the working world at this point.
Yep, many of our students, again, come to us with a lot of knowledge either in Google or Microsoft Office or both. The business department will still be using those tools within their courses, and so they'll be teaching those things woven into the courses that are in the program of studies. But because the skills the students are coming to us with, they really don't need a separate course called Microsoft Office.
Not something like, I was thinking more like, not Word, but Excel,
Yep.
PowerPoint, and so on, those that generally the kids don't use.
No, but they do use the Google version of those things, and so they do use Google Sheets and Google Slides pretty regularly. So, and again, the business department will be weaving in Microsoft Office products and Google products within each of the courses, so students will have that experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So some of the new courses that we are looking to add is an Introduction to Business Fundamentals, a Strategic Marketing and DECA Leadership class, an Applied Marketing course, super relevant to the Power School conversation we just had, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, are the new courses in the business department that we are seeking to add. Happy to answer any questions about those. I don't necessarily have to read all the descriptions for you. We do want to get out of time sometime tonight. Also, again, going back to the conversation about adding pathways, we would want to add language to the help desk course, which is our real sort of intern experience for kids that are interested in working in IT. They actually work alongside our IT employees for the district at the Genius Bar at the high school, and they work on Chromebooks, and they help with updates and other IT-related tasks. So if students take help desk, they will have the opportunity to earn an Acer laptop certification. Yeah. Okay, all right. So in English, English was one of the departments that did a significant rewrite to their program of studies. They had lots of great courses in there. They still do, but they had lots of great courses in there, but a lot of them had sort of lost interest with our kiddos. Kids were not electing them as they had been in the past, and they needed a little bit of an update. So they did add at the beginning sort of an English department cheat sheet. They sort of stole a page from the math department, who's always had that flow chart, trying to make it easier for families to navigate and understand which courses students need to take, and suggesting that we remove the courses, the Poetry Experience, Literary Heritage of America, Writing Seminar, SAT Reading and Writing. If you're really holding near and dear to SAT, hold on. We have more in the math department about that, but we are suggesting that we remove those classes from the English department to make way for the new courses: Writer's Playlist, Poetry and Lyrics, Capstone Seminar, Whodunit, Mystery Thriller and Fiction, Horror, Stand and Deliver, Speech, Reading, Writing and Speaking, and Satire and Comedy. Some of those are classes that would meet their grade 12 option, and some of those are electives that students could choose, such as the Stand and Deliver and Satire. Yes.
Food for thought. I'm actually a little surprised, given the breadth of some of the classes that are being offered now, which I think are really exciting, that there isn't some combination of one of the content courses in Stand and Deliver, so they create a course for podcasters.
Ooh.
So I just thought I'd kind of throw that out there. I think that would be of immense interest to all of the influencers out there.
Absolutely. Perhaps we'll move that, maybe that'll be one of their speech projects.
It could
be an
alternative capstone.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving on. All right. English for speakers of other languages. Our director and assistant director of EL did some significant work on this portion of the program of studies, making sure that we are in compliance, that we are meeting the needs of our students, which are ever-changing. So they did add on page 33 and 34 some specifications and some information on how students are selected for different courses and different levels based on their reader and their access scores. Again, being as transparent as we can be with our families so they know how they will be placed in these sort of classes. We have been running newcomer classes at Stoughton High School now this is our second year. We've been running newcomer classes in English, in science, math, and history. And those are going well, but we do have some students that are coming into us at even lower English proficiency rates who can't necessarily be successful in those newcomer content classes. And so what you will see in here is a couple of things. One, replacing ESL 1 with a course name title, really in title alone, ESL Newcomer, replacing the title ELL 2 with ESL Beginner, ELL 3 with ESL Intermediate, and ELL 4 and 5 with ESL Advanced. Those titles are a little bit more comprehensive and more understandable what they might mean. ELL 1 on its own doesn't really say much about what that means for the level of learning. And then adding to the course catalog an ESL in literacy, an ESL in math, an ESL in science, and ESL in history. And those courses would be really language-driven so that the students who are coming to us with those low proficiency levels in English would have some success in managing those courses, learning some of that foundational language that you need in those content classes so that they are not meeting with real significant challenges or failures in a class that they just aren't prepared language-wise for. So I think that this gives our students a real opportunity to be successful, and those courses for those newcomers would count towards their English credits or requirements, towards their math and history and English. We will still run the newcomer classes as well, because we have students that will come in at that level too. And of course, we have students that can come to us and move right into an Algebra 1 or a U.S. History 1. And so we really work with their reader scores, the access scores, and really work with those families to make sure they're placed correctly when they enter Stoughton High School. Okay. The Visual Arts Department is suggesting to add a course called Buddy's Art Mentor. Yeah, last year we added the unified PE option for our juniors and seniors, which was a huge success. About 6 students each term take a unified PE with our significantly intellectually impaired students, and so this gives them an opportunity to be a peer buddy and a mentor, works beside those students, play with them, have a good time. Our students love it, and it's sort of, unified basketball was a huge hit, and we have sort of rolled that into the coursework as well. And so art is stepping into that game. They want to have that opportunity for our kiddos to be able to work side by side and mentor and have fun and learn. Both parties learn a significant amount from each other. This could also be the foundations of sort of a teaching pathway that we hope to incorporate through our work here at Stoughton High School. Visual Arts is also suggesting just a name change from Advanced Painting to Painting 3 and from Advanced Drawing to Drawing 3. And then because we have several students who really, art is where they're heading after high school. It's a passion of theirs. It's something they want to study after high school. They are artists, and they want to continue with that. The Visual Art Department would like to add a full year option of studio art, and that allows them, rather than just taking a semester, they can take a full year of that. And that course really helps them prepare their portfolio for art application. Okay. Drama is always making changes. This is a fairly new program for us. Really have expanded on it since we moved into the new building in 2019. And Mr. Halleck is always making sure that we're up on the latest and greatest. So he is suggesting we add acting for stage and screen. So this would really be the first course that is talking about more than just live performance, but also screen performance on TV and other productions. And so this is another opportunity for our drama students. Okay. We would like to finally move into the wellness movement of physical education and move away from the standalone PE course, health course, morph and meld those courses together and develop grade 9 wellness and grade 10 wellness. Now you might notice that the credits for grade 9 wellness and grade 10 wellness have not been marked just yet. Because for a couple of things, we need to know what our staffing will be. A PE teacher is one of the teachers that I did ask for next year. Where that stands, we shall see. But depending how that staffing plays out, will decide how those credits get determined for grade 9 and grade 10. So I only have so many staff. It's a finite number. And because we also want to expand our term classes to semesters, that means taking our 11th and 12th grade PE options right now, which are alternative fitness, competitive games, lifetime activities, etc., expanding those from a term to a semester. And so that eats up staff too. So we have a little bit of playing that we'll have to do with our staff before we can determine what those credits might be.
So I just want to mention that these cuts. Thank you. These cuts in our budgets are making an impact on these students because we need to integrate that gym and that wellness model moving forward. And now we can't move forward with our students because the budget doesn't allow for the staffing that we need in order to do these things. So wanted to kind of hit that home a little bit because now it's real It's definitely real. For our students, it hits right there.
Thank you. Mr. Barbosa.
You know, I'd love to see in this PE and wellness, our kids being CPR certified at the end of these courses. And CPR certification is like a half a day's training. And it would be wonderful if they can be certified and come out of this class with the certificate saying they're CPR certified.
I absolutely love that recommendation, not only because it's a life skill, but it's also something that will look really good on a job application.
That's right.
And our teens are really struggling to get work, even after the age of 16 and 18.
Thank you for that recommendation. Okay. History really is only removing literary heritage. That's a course that they co-teach with English. We already mentioned that when we talked about English. In mathematics, we are asking to remove Algebra 1 support, Math Lab Instructional Lab 2, and Math Lab Instructional 3. Those Math Lab classes were originally put into the program of studies probably when I was math director, ages ago here, and those were for MCAS classes. So those were to prepare students to take and retake the MCAS if they needed to, so they are outdated. And Algebra 1 support, now that we have Flex Block in our schedule, and we did not run Algebra 1 support this year, is students have the opportunity within the school day to see their teachers as they need during that Flex Block, so there is no need to run the Algebra 1 support class. We are suggesting that in the place of those, we do run a course called Foundations of Algebra. That would be primarily for ninth grade students coming into the high school. We are finding, as we look at our data, that our students are really struggling in their foundational math skills and number sense. And so because they are struggling in those areas, they are then struggling in Algebra 1, and if they don't have that foundation in Algebra 1, it just carries through to geometry and then Algebra 2. And so we really need to take a pause for a moment, let them develop those skills as a ninth grader so that they then will be successful in their Algebra 1 and their courses that follow that. Yes.
Actually, if something's going to be fixed, I think it perhaps should be fixed at the middle school. So you get the qualified students coming into the high school instead of allowing the problem to continue into high school and try to fix it at the high school. I don't know if there's any way of communicating the issue with the middle school and strengthening the program there, so we're not downgrading the high school's program because there's a problem in the middle school.
Absolutely. I communicate with Principal Crowley often and with the curriculum coordinator, Brian Scanlon. These are conversations that we have vertically quite frequently. She is aware of those things. They are looking at what their program is. But in the meantime, we need something to help us get through until that happens. And so this would be the opportunity. By putting it in the course catalog doesn't mean it has to stay forever, but it will help us get over whatever that hump is. Yes.
I didn't see the Foundations of Algebra class in the math department course sequence flow chart. So I was wondering, is that a precursor to Algebra 1 for students who are not academically ready for Algebra 1 based on their academic records from the middle school?
Correct.
Okay.
I will make note of that, make sure that we get that in that spreadsheet, that course. Perfect. All right. We are removing the SAT reading and writing from the English program, but we are taking that and combining it with the SAT math. It'll be one course called SAT Review. It's staying in the math portion of the program of studies. One of our math teachers will actually be likely the one who's teaching it. He is quite qualified to do both. This helps us with our students taking a semester of it rather than flip-flopping. Right now, English takes half the kids in term 1 and math takes half the kids in term 1, and then they flip-flop. So if a student is taking the SATs in the early fall, they will have only had currently half of the prep. And so now if we have a full semester of it where the same teacher is teaching it and all kids are in the same thing, in the same class, they'll have both preps before they take that fall exam. And we do offer this class in the fall, not in the spring typically, so our students are prepared for the SATs.
With this training, it gives that child perhaps one chance to do well in the SAT from this training before their applications are in. I was actually thinking this probably should occur earlier, not in the 12th grade, but perhaps in,
No, students as early as 10th grade can take that course. It's
Oh.
it's geared towards 10th and 11th
10th,
grade students.
10th grade, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. 12th graders can take it, but it's really for 10th and 11th.
A lot of these courses, they pretty much, once the student takes the exam, my children anyway, when they take the exam, they know now what they must really pay attention to
Correct.
when they take this course, and then hopefully learn it well enough, so when they take it one more time at least, they're better prepared than that first time where they take the course before the SAT exam and don't know what their strength or their weaknesses are.
Yes.
And then, of course, if they take the SAT exam, they understand what their strength and weaknesses are, and then they concentrate during this course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also, just to remind you, that we also provide the PSAT to our 10th and 11th grade students as an opportunity, so it's another opportunity for them to identify where they need some more assistance.
Thank you.
Okay. Then some simple name change, changing the term, the class statistics to intro to statistics. And then, of course, the flow chart was updated, which obviously we missed foundations. We'll make sure we add that in. Okay. In science, we are doing, they also added a chart, again, to try to help our families identify the courses that are available to them at which levels. And then a simple name change, although it's not so simple on our side, but it's a simple name change from just calling it biology to honors biology, chemistry to honors chemistry. We still have the college sections, but what happens is it shows up on our students' schedules as just biology, and whether it's honors or college is just the number. And so it's not easily identified both to faculty, families, and students. And so just putting the word honors in there makes it a lot more easy for all of us to make sure that people are in the right places at the right time. So it's adding the word honors to those different courses that are listed there. And then removing the science of energy, food science, and the science instructional labs. Science instructional labs, again, were an MCAS class to assist students in making sure that they can pass the MCAS and for the retest. Food science, unfortunately, we just don't have the space for it, and so it's not easily scheduled in our buildings. We don't really have the appropriate space for the class. And in science of energy, now we are asking for our students to take biology in the 9th grade rather than doing a science of energy biology sequence. This will open up far more opportunities for our students in the sciences, and we have a lot of them for them to take.
Question?
Yes.
As you know, some of my kids are in school still. One of the things I was surprised at when I went to parents-teachers meeting is that there seemed to be a distinct separation between math and science. I love the idea of the physical education and the wellness, or the combination of these. A lot of the courses you talk about putting them together. It would be, I think it would be a huge advantage for the kids to have more integration between the math and science, because the science teacher said, we're going to do this, we're going to show momentum. However they want to show momentum. I used to, in my high school, we used to roll a bowling ball across the hallway. We're going to describe it in terms of math, calculus. It would be wonderful if there's a coordination in which the science teacher can say that to the math teacher, and the math teacher says, oh, okay, we will work on that area of mathematics such it integrates, and they can see how the math integrates with the science. And I found from my discussion, because my kids are in school, that there's a distinct separation. And I think if the schools, I'm not a teacher, but if the teachers think this can help the kids, it would be a thing to look at and have this tightly coupled area like it's been done in other programs, because that's where they belong together. And science and math obviously belong together.
Well, we have a great opportunity now with the new schedule where all students have, all teachers have collaboration at the same time, although some have on opposite days. We can schedule it in such a way that math and science could have collaboration on the same days, which allows us to have those conversations. We did not have that ability before.
Julie, can I just add to, this is a great question. So, as much as taking out accountability on a test at the high school level, I think is concerning, And as you know, I haven't been the biggest proponent of MCAS because I think there's many different ways to show competency and high skill. We have been at the high school level in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the most traditional state for what a high school schedule or program of studies looks like. So by MCAS going away, if you will, as a graduation requirement, I think what you're going to start to see, I'll predict it today, use your crystal ball as you say, classes like STEM are going to be the core of the future. It won't be biology, chemistry, physics for every student. Why do we do that? Carnegie units. I think you're going to have a discussion about that going forward. So classes like STEM, when you have a full project-based learning class of engineering and woodworking together, or a math class and engineering together, are going to provide better opportunities for students than the traditional model has. And I'll give you an example. A college university, just a few years ago, there was a huge push for integrated math 1, 2, and 3. And for years, it had been thought as a lesser class, and yet the state rewrote it as a full alignment into algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. And it was called, and it was written, and it was supposed to be the equal. Until the state college system, not all of them, said, we don't know what integrated math is. And kids at one particular state college weren't getting into college from public schools in Massachusetts because they were taking integrated 1, 2, and 3. So what happens? We dropped it. Almost everybody's dropped integrated math because there was just a concern. I do think that because of accountability going in a different direction, that things like integration, cross-curricular, things like STEM are going to be potentially easier to create, develop, and implement than just the traditional Carnegie units that we've been doing since the Industrial Revolution, which we're still trying to figure out why we do it that way. So I think those would be the discussion. And I think if it's a local control, then school committees will have a lot of say in what that looks like.
Yeah, I love looking at the way the way we've been doing it for years and years, and pretty much say, how can we do this better? And one of the example, the calendar, it's like, wow, I've been looking at this type of calendar for 12 years, now the change, and I'm saying, wow, why didn't anyone think of that before? And I love the change, and I love the fact that a lot of the courses are being integrated. I just think it's going to be great for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, and then science is looking to add 2 new courses, computer-aided design, CAD, and woodworking product R&D. These are, engineering is a huge area where our students love to work in. This gives a little bit more hands-on for our students as well. And so this expands some of our traditional engineering kind of courses to other interests that students might have. In the school counseling section, we want to add the course Career Awareness and Exploration. This would be available to all students in grades 9 through 11. So it would be an opportunity for students to start to develop and think about the course. We hope they've already started to think about this, but this is a more formal opportunity for them to start thinking about what they want to do after high school, where their strengths are, what kinds of courses they might want to take, what kinds of internships they might want to take advantage of in their senior year. And so this would be an opportunity, an elective opportunity for our students to really explore the different opportunities available to them. And they can then take career readiness and immersion, although they don't have to take career awareness and exploration in order to be able to take the career readiness and immersion in their senior year, which is our internship class that we offer. Yes.
Yeah, I was glad to see Cam in here. I used to work for Computer Vision, and the founder of Computer Vision coined the word CAD-CAM. And I was actually wondering if this name can be changed instead of computer-aided design / computer-aided manufacturing, CAD-CAM, because it looks like the description, you're building something, so you're manufacturing something. So I think CAD-CAM would be a better name, computer-aided design / computer-aided manufacturing, which describes the entire course, not just design. We're actually going to build something, hopefully, and take it home.
For the sake of transcripts, that's a long title. Would you consider computer-aided design / machine? Or was it manufacturing?
CAD/CAM, that's industry known as CAD/CAM. I mean, I suppose, I wouldn't spell it out, I just put CAD/CAM, and anyone that is familiar with the technology knows exactly what it is.
It's interesting to know, but is it known at higher education level? Because I think
Oh, yeah.
that's the main concern, is whether those credits will transfer into a higher education setting.
Everyone has to know what CAD/CAM means by this time, I would hope.
Julie?
Yes.
I had a question about the career awareness and exploration. You already know how excited I am about those opportunities. I was wondering if this would be an opportunity to bring in either instructor-designed or student-designed capstone for a career fair, and if that would include a career fair with town hall, which is something that we have discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do run some career fairs and some college fairs, both of those things at Stoughton High School. It's something that our college and career counselor has really expanded upon. Right now, the way that it is set up is that we have a bunch of different vendors, a bunch of different career folks come into our lunch, and they set up for 3 lunches around the CAF. Students are able to go up. It's usually a pretty fun atmosphere, actually, because they know how to work with kids, they know how to attract them, so they have all kinds of games and gadgets and swag to sort of attract them. So we do that. It's usually a week long where she brings in different vendors, and then we do the same thing with colleges and careers and technical schools come in a couple of days as well. We'd love to expand that. We did work with the town last year for a town-wide career fair specific for town departments. We had a lot of students volunteer to help with that. We did some significant work getting, attracting folks to come to that. We're happy to continue to work with the town departments and expand those opportunities.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've discussed, and I know Matt and I have had conversations around this, is what can we do to promote positions that we have locally. So if they're researching a particular sector or field, finding out where there may be local opportunities to do an internship or to do an informational interview or to invite a guest to participate in a career fair, I think would be really helpful to keep our talent local.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Instead of having it just a career fair, an internship career fair, it would be wonderful if we can get businesses to hire some of our kids for the summer internship or after school before they graduate, because obviously that would look good in their resume, whether they're going from high school straight to work or from high school to college. Having some emphasis on internship I think would be great.
Including the school department.
Yes, including the school department.
And actually, we do have some students that do, as they're part of their career readiness and immersion, they work with our elementary schools, and they, for either teaching or paraprofessional, special education. So during their spring semester, they go out and they work with our schools. So it's been pretty successful. We've been doing that since COVID, actually, since the state offered that opportunity. Yeah. Okay. We're getting down there, we're almost done. In the world languages, the Latin program would like to expand that a little bit to include an opportunity to take an introduction to classical Greek, just another opportunity for our students. It is the language, the classical Greek is something that our one of our Latin teachers is skilled in, certified in, and able to teach. That's likely why they chose that particular version, but it just gives our students another opportunity.
As someone who actually I introduced classical Greek to their former school, and I actually taught, this is really nitpicky and the nerdy comment of the night, I taught the Athanase or Athanase, depending upon your pronunciation, which I'm not weighing in on, but the stories are in Greek and not Latin.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, just a little typo there.
Yeah.
This
But I'm excited to see this program. This is a really great opportunity.
Me too. I mean, learning some of the Greek words, even classical Greek words, takes people so far into the science, medical field and everything else. You have the Greek words all over the place, and knowing these words would just give them so much of an advantage if that's the path they take forward. So I was
Right, yeah. I
excited
mean-
to see that also.
Yeah, when I took it in college, I mean, our class was third people who are going to go into classics and law and that's politics, that sort of stuff. A third like sciences and, psychology, that sort of thing. But a third were religion. So there's a lot of people who use this as a way to get into scriptural studies. So it really has a huge basis, a huge appeal to people.
And they want to, it's time to add an honors option of Portuguese 3. We've had that program, we added Portuguese, I want to say 4 years ago. And so at this point, we have been running it long enough that the honors level is absolutely something that we should be including in our options. And then lastly, we are suggesting we remove the course academic enrichment. That was sort of a hands-on lab assistance, but now again with FlexBlock, it's not something that we find is necessary. And then we have this course that we used to call Play-Doh, but the district does not use Play-Doh anymore. We use Edgenuity, so it's a simple just name change. Yes.
Right after we talk about the Greeks. Yeah, it's a very, very whole system. Yeah, we're happy to move to Edgenuity.
Any general questions about the program of studies? I just had a question about the new schedule. Our students, so you mentioned the switch from the terms to the semesters. In general, are students able to get the classes that they want and need with the new
Absolutely.
schedule? Okay.
Yeah, our new schedule is really quite a beautiful thing. I'm very excited to talk to you about it at some point in terms of student feedback, faculty feedback, and then the tremendous and statistically significant impact it's had on discipline, attendance, and grades.
Schedule, the report is completed, and it's scheduled to go to the chair for approval for the meeting on the 28th.
Oh, good to know. Chair will note that down. All right. Yes. So we will vote on this next time in review, but thank you very much for all of you for your presentation, Ms. Miller. If you have any questions, send them to me and I'll send them on. But I think we've covered quite a bit of ground and really excited to see the opportunities through Stoughton High School. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the school calendar draft presentation. We have we have a lot of options here. We have two different calendars in terms of dates. They have the same proposed starting date, which was not something that we had, so they both start September 3rd for grades 1 through 12, September 4th for pre-K through K. The difference is the date the date that winter break ends. Do we go back that Friday to January 2nd? And then we have the last day of school on Monday, June 15th, or do we have the reopening on Monday, January 5th, and then that would bump us back to a Tuesday, June 16th for a final day. So, Dr. Beta, I know you had the recommendation for.
Yeah, I think this kind of plays a little bit into the discussion we had this year, where we didn't come back for a Monday at the winter break because of concerns. My concern with coming back on that Friday on the 2nd is all about attendance, both with staff and students. So I highly recommend that we not come back on the 2nd, but come back on the 5th, simply because I just don't think we're going to have an attendance issue. That's my concern.
Of course, the cost of heating the building and getting things
Yeah.
started up just for one day to then shut it all down again.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the dates are the dates, because of June 19th now, the 10th is a new holiday. So it's going to play, regardless if we're out on the 16th or the 17th of June. If we go to the 18th, we're still here, but on the 19th, now we have to skip that and go to the 20th if we have a lot of snow. So it'd be my recommendation that you come back on the 5th.
And the other wrinkle to this is we have three different options. We have a menu of options of the formats. And the first one is the format that we've been using with everything listed in the middle. And then we have a different format. We have with them listed sort of horizontally, and then kind of a hybrid. So everything's not, the calendars, the months are listed vertically, but they're broken out. So the important dates for each month are listed beside. So this is something for us to look at and consider as we do that. I would love to hear feedback. Unfortunately, our Student Advisory Council representative is not here, but I will ask Ms. Miller to pass this on to them, because I would certainly love to hear feedback from them. And we also, Dr. Baida and I talked about potentially throwing this out to the student council, the school councils and the PTOs to get feedback from parents, especially parents of, special education students or parents who have their own kind of challenges, which one is easier to use for them. I know there's been a lot of questions. The one that we've currently been using is very busy, and parents have difficulty finding which days are early release and which days are holidays. Yeah, so.
Everybody looks for the circles.
Yeah.
Makes it easy.
Yeah, so, and then, if we want to give feedback on the headers, that sort of thing. The other thing that's a new wrinkle is, this was something brought to us that we have not had, is this back page option, which would have the back-to-school nights and the bilingual parent nights, parent-teacher conferences, when grades end, which we don't currently have. I actually like this idea of adding this on the back, because I know a lot of parents that as soon as this calendar comes out, literally take it, print it out, take it to their employer, and that's the time off that they ask for. And having those additional dates, especially the parent-teacher conferences and the back-to-school nights, with that, I think would be extremely helpful to a lot of our working parents.
It also allows for us, if we really want to, there is some space here that, for example, adding CPAC to this would be important, right? Because we can get those dates from those organizations and say to them, you could have a calendar that's posted, and then the one that's going to be sent. We're also looking at getting, believe it or not, but we're thinking of a little bit of an old-time thing of getting the refrigerator magnet concept back, where you can just stick, your calendar and just stick it on the refrigerator, and it's always there for the sake of, it's part of our attendance committee, kind of reminding parents about how important it is to go to school and school's in session, that type of thing. But yeah, you could put your CPAC in here and a couple of this room in this back page to condense it further to put even more information. And of course, we'll probably always have to add something to this that says subject to change because of a snow day or something like that. But the intentions of the options was simply to make it easier to read. That was the simple intention. So whatever the committee wishes, we will do.
Any questions or feedback? Yes, Armando?
Well, I love 3B, so it keeps a little bit of the original one, but reformatted, and I like the vertical read, September, October, as the original one, and so on, and then you have the information on the side.
Right.
The other question I have is that the OMS is in trimesters as opposed to terms, the high school's in terms,
Correct.
and it says terms on the bottom for the OMS.
Yeah, I think this is still subject to
Good catch, though. Because
edits,
both
yes.
both the OMS and elementary are on trimesters.
Trimesters.
I think for the elementary, I'd love to see the fine arts nights. I know that's far out, but I think those are another nights. It's a little bit trickier with the middle school and the high school because you have sports and different days for concerts and sort of stuff. But I think for the elementary school, the fine arts nights are such big school-wide events that it's really helpful for parents to kind of be able to plan that out.
Yeah. The winter concert, the theater. I'd love to see
Just a
all
matter of all those organizations knowing their dates by the time you publish the calendar, which I'm not sure they do in some cases.
I think it's the more school-wide it is, I think the more important it would be to have that.
Yes,
on that.
and your back page information can always be updated at the end of every term if you needed to. You can send it home with the kids, you could send it home electronically. So the back page is more about, is probably more fluid than your calendar vote, which is your school year calendar.
Right. So we will vote on this next time, but certainly opening to, yes, Chris, if you had more questions or if you.
More feedback. So with that roll-up synopsis page with the events, I also noted the large school-wide fundraiser events like the pumpkin patch. I know that they know those a year in advance. And then I didn't know if it made sense for, like, are there any daytime events where they're really expecting parents to be there? To the superintendent's point that, you know, the more notice parents have, especially if they only have but so many hours or days that they can use for paid time off, that they can plan accordingly, would be extremely helpful. If there's a date that the district knows for like summer school enrollment, that
Yep.
might be helpful as well,
Yep.
to add to that.
Preschool and kindergarten registration also.
Yes. And in terms of the format, I'd really love to hear from the students and the parents in terms of whether it makes more sense to have the date listed first and then what the event is, or the event and then the date. I'm thinking like by the time you get to the high school, maybe you are looking for the specific event. But like in elementary school, I was just fly by week, what's going on this week? Okay, what's going on? You know, I didn't know what it was, I just knew I had to be there, you know. But I'd be curious to know what their feedback is, if there's a preferred format, one way or the other, but I wanted to throw that out. And I didn't know that we could ever give input on the calendar's format before, so I'd like to raise a point, and that is significant days. Is that like a significant, you know, I have a significant other, it's a significant day, but I'm not going to say what that day is. And it seems the significant days are mostly early release, but not always early release. There's only one date where I see that it is a significant day that also happens to be an early release. So it's really confusing to me, like the day before Thanksgiving. It's not a significant day, it's the day before, but it's not even listed here except early release. Well, then just call it early release. Because when you're looking at a color and a geographic code, the geographic code, the circle symbol, is almost lost a little bit with that background color. And I'm thinking for individuals who may have, you know, vision difficulties or, you know, discerning that, I just think it would be clearer, you know, anyway, but yeah, so I would just go back and maybe recode anything that's early release as solely early release. And then I love the term ending color code, so yes, please. And those colors are very clear and easy to find. And then to your point with CPAC, I very much would love to have the LPAC reactions, and they are meeting on the 15th.
I was hoping to be really organized and maybe send a quick survey out. I will try to get that together. Your meeting tomorrow.
15th.
15th.
Oh,
It is tomorrow.
crap.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll-
it's tomorrow.
You have these, and I'll maybe try to draft something up in the morning to send out.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, feedback on that? All right, to be continued.
Joe, can you make sure that Amy has this and that she has an opportunity to vet it with parents tomorrow night for LPAC?
The calendars?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
You want all of them sent to them?
yeah.
Okay.
I think we're
Well, not the AB, just for the different formats.
Yeah.
Do you prefer this format, or this format? I wouldn't. I don't know why I put these here if I can't get them out. All right, thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda was actually brought to us by Heidi Perkins, who's not here. We don't have any supporting materials for this. Do you have the information on this, Joe?
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
this is, student activities name change request is simply that we are not doing Destination Imagination anymore, and we're just moving those funds to be the name change to robotics, because that's what we're actually doing. We actually have kids interested in the robotics, so this would drop the Destination Imagination and put in robotics instead, which allows for us to then have a stipend available for the person that's doing it and the kids being recognized under that. It's that simple. But it does require your support.
Do we need to vote?
Yes, we need
Yep.
to vote on it, because it is a financial change.
I will move that we change the name of the student activities account from Destination Imagination to Robotics.
I wanted to do that.
I'm
I
sorry,
second.
Chris. I retract my motion. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Emotions out there now.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. That's carried 5-0. That was easy. Next item, next item on the agenda is the District Standards and Indicators Self-Assessment Report. This was put together by Mr. Ford. I'll hand it over to you.
So right now, we're just going to bring you up to speed where we're at in terms of the school improvement planning process. So the district did complete its district standards and indicators self-assessment. So we did break up into 6 teams headed by plus a member of central office, except for Tara Montefiore did do the data piece. And so at this point in the process, we have completed the self-assessment. You've seen the summary document letting you know how we rated ourselves. We have a more substantial 32-page actually complete assessment that we've distributed with the administrative team. What should be taking place right now is I know the superintendent has reached out to members of the committee asking for feedback. And as elected members of this community, we absolutely want to know what you think areas of interest should be to help shape our conversations moving forward as an administrative team in identifying areas where we need to create a plan and then developing SMART goals and then action steps to accomplish those SMART goals. So at this point now that we've completed this component, we are looking for feedback from the rest of the committee so that as, like I said, the elected representatives of this community, we know what's sparked your curiosity or attention where you think we need to actually focus our efforts. And tomorrow we'll be reaching out to the full administrative team about what they think we might have missed in the self-assessment or some things that didn't come up. And we'll be putting together the improvement planning team or teams that will then develop specific SMART goals and action steps that we'll then bring forward to you as a proposed triennial plan. So that whole process is progressing, and right now we're just, we've got the information, we're looking for a little more, and then we'll start putting it all together.
Can I ask when does the proposed triennial plan come forward?
The end of this fiscal year, this school year.
So, June? June?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's well in the works. I mean, if in looking at the district and where we're at and the challenges we're facing, I mean, some components that you're going to see are fairly obvious, but we're not limiting ourselves to the things that are jumping out at us. I don't.
Yeah,
The
I think-
superintendent want to speak to some of the things that we're seeing that we believe we're going to have to go in.
Yeah, what we're looking at is, so we know we're in a budget process right now, and there are implications of all of that and so on and so forth, but that doesn't stop us from planning for the future and making sure that the committee has some of those plans. So one of the things we've talked about really is in 3 different areas around the triennial plan, but we've looked at things such as specialized programs, special education and ELL in the future in terms of programming we want to do. We're having internal discussions around early education world language at the elementary level moving forward, if you will. We're looking at a literacy planning and really taking a look at our reading outcomes because we have at least 90% reading by end of grade 3. What does our plan within that look like? And as you know, that's all part of the baseline of coming back to the committee in June with a full report of all of that data and information, and then we'll tie it into the triennial plan for the next 3 years. The only other component actually one of them you saw tonight was a very specific beginning process of the high school looking at pathways with more detail and more specificity than they have in the past. But keep in mind that things like a Chapter 74, Vocational Technical Education's Business Technology Program, is something we're going to be going after. It's one of the easiest ones to go after, and there's a good number of students who really want to dabble in that business and technology area to see if it's an area that they want to continue their studies or enter into the workforce in. You mentioned earlier today things that is actually on my board on a cutout, which is worksheet, which is every student graduating with a CPR. Every student's graduating with an OSHA certificate of 10 hours. So if they're in the workplace, they have those basic skills around what is work safety. Right to know, something that we as educators have to do every single year. How do we get students to potentially walking out the door with those types of things? those are some of the big picture ideas that will come back with the committee, and then as we move forward, you continue to tackle trying to implement it as much as some of the stuff that you saw today, which are, some of them are just title changes, some of them are significant changes to the program of studies going forward. So excited about it, a lot of work, but the goal is to get all of that to you for your May and June meeting, so that you can really take a look at it and begin the process of working to support it, if that makes sense. I'm sorry?
Just feeling some FOMO.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there'll be working committees of community members as we move forward, so we're happy to bring you back. I still have your cell number.
Questions, Chris?
So much to love about this. So I did have a couple of questions, observations. First of all, I thought it was really interesting that no one assessed themselves as very well except for Matt. Well done, you.
So I want to defend myself right there, if I can. If you read the rubric, the addition of my position really was hard to, not me.
Sure, Matt. I also, so one of the things I'd be curious about, John, either now or in the future, is to think about kind of better defining. I know these are short. The first column is like a short description, but sometimes the description is like taught curriculum, like this year, ever, taught the curriculum that you're selecting, you know, so to provide a little more context. Equity of access, for example, you know, like, is that going to be based on a data metric or a measure? Resource allocation, poor Heidi. But also thinking about where the locus of control is for some of these things. They are important things, but how can we create a rubric that really assesses what can be done within that particular administrator's locus of control? John, you look like you have thoughts.
So why don't I just share the detailed document with you?
Go for it.
All right, so I'll make a copy of it and I'll give it to you tonight.
Okay, cool. Yep.
So you'll see that all the things you're talking about
Yeah.
are all in one.
Yeah, I was also curious, and this is a John, possibly Matt, possibly Joe thing, how we assess ourselves sometimes can be very blind to reality, both for good and for bad. And I was wondering if there might be plans for a 360 review where peers assess based on collaboration and how their roles intersect with those other person's roles as a potential other data point. Because, you know, I wonder, like, would you really grade Matt as doing very well in that professional development? You know.
His domain. Just so you know, that's his rating.
It's, so, you know, but, you know, what might that look like if there are opportunity for peer input?
So so what you're talking about is something different from what this is.
Okay.
All right. So this particular piece is designed for district administrative teams to go through and evaluate their school district. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I found interesting about this particular piece, talking about different perspectives, is in some of the areas, different groups had a much different perspective on what other groups had on the same thing. And I'll tell you, like curriculum and instruction, my group was a very critical group, and it was all the people in curriculum and instruction. And I mean, nobody was pulling any punches, and it was really just focused on what the improvement was. Nobody really wanted to talk about what we were doing well. But if you read the more detailed pieces or look into the notes or have conversations with people, there are a lot of different perspectives on the same thing. And that was what I know I talked to Joe about it a little bit. And we talked about it a little bit after he had read the self-assessment report. He picked up on the same things. Whereas if you look at what some people said, and other groups said about the same thing, it's very different how they viewed it. And that's one of the challenges, like with a tool like this, is teasing out what's reality and how do you try to work around all the perspectives and combine them to actually get a better understanding of what you're looking at. Now this tool's about your administrative team going through the district. There are other times where we can use other processes, and I think you've seen it before. When we do other things, sometimes we absolutely go to focus groups, sometimes we go to surveys, sometimes we do different things, but this is really generally focused on the district doing an introspective look at itself to then bring forward, what we think we need to do to improve the educational outcome of the kids that we serve, in the community we serve.
Consensus was, for example, the standard on leadership that I did in governance. We came to consensus, but we had outliers, both folks that said, no, we actually do that really well, and, like one, and then most of us unwell, and then someone was like, oh, somewhat well. And then we even went into discussions around, well, if this had been asked 2 years ago, I might have a different answer. So I know at my, and I think Jonathan will support this statement, we did have to come to consensus. But when you looked at each individual's quote report or their thought of it, it might have been a little different, because some folks don't necessarily, we said we have a focus on improvement really well, and so we had a discussion on, well, what's the data for that? And so some people would say X, Y, Z, some people would say, no, it's A, B, C, so we ended up having that discussion, which actually is also part of the reason why things like EduClimber is something we're going with, a place where we can put it all and make decisions from that all, and that's the data we're going to use in Stoughton, not this data. We decided that it's just as a general thought.
And if I could add one more thing, this is a snapshot in time from July of last year. If we did this again, some of the ratings would be different, and I'm going to say this last year was a very productive year in addressing a lot of our issues and moving things forward. And like the superintendent said, if we did this now, it would actually look different. But this is our focal point. We know where we've made gains. We can filter those things out. But administratively, it was a lot of good conversations, a lot of cross-correlation, a lot of feedback at the retreat, because we rolled out the initial draft document, and we elicit feedback from all the groups across all domains. And some people agreed, and some people didn't, and it was interesting even just looking at that whole diverse perspective on the conclusions that we had drawn, and give you a lot to think about.
If you did the financial standards, standard 6, and if we had done this now after town meeting gave us money for a long-term capital plan, we might say, hey, we're doing that really well. But at the point, we didn't even know we were going to have funding to create a long-term capital plan. So it's a perception of it at that time.
Well, it sounds like it's an amazing tool to fuel conversation and collaboration and transparency, and to identify kind of common pain points that are agreed upon across roles. I applaud that. I think that's phenomenal.
Chris, I thought you were referencing at the team's ability to be team, not assessing an individual member of the team, but their teamness together. I thought that's what you referred to.
Well, at first, I thought this was Joe assessing Joe. I thought this was Jonathan assessing Jonathan, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't realize it was like a breakout group discussion on that particular topic.
I'll have Jonathan share the document. We'll send it to you electronically, John. We might as well, we'll share the document with you. You'll see the 36-page document of who was on the teams and why, and we took time deciding who was going to be based on some experience or lack of experience, on who would sit on what team and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. It also then clarifies why there are so many wells, if it was about getting to consensus.
Yes.
Statistically,
correct.
That's exactly where you would end up landing.
Right.
But it's the conversation that's important.
Yeah, what I did when I thought it was interesting, right? So the old accountability system in Massachusetts used to use the standards and indicators, right? And you'd have a superintendent and a bunch of retirees all come into your town, up to your school district and tell you what they thought, based on, back in the old days, the EQA, literally boxes upon boxes of reports that you'd have to send people. So, I mean, I looked at this and I said, hey, 27 out of 48 line indicators 56%, we defined ourselves as well and very well. That means that, the other 44% are basically 21 areas. We said we did it somewhat well or not at all well, which was 2 areas. So we kind of can come out of this with a little bit of a pat on the back, but at the same time say, well, what are some real areas that we can say we got to do better?
Yeah. Where do we think we should be?
Right, exactly.
And what's keeping us from being there?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions? So do you want, basically, what's the committee's role at this point? What do you want us to do with this?
any feedback
Okay.
is really your role at this point. And so if you have a strong feedback about one of these indicators and line items, it's important for us to know that.
And should that go through the chair? Should
I
that-
can go directly to Jonathan.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and for us, it's I know I said this earlier, but you are the elected representatives of this community. You have the capacity to interact with all of us. You're involved in the budget process and all the different things that go on. I mean, what we need to know is, as the primary stakeholders that interact with us, what are you seeing? What do you think we need to do? We're not talking about simple fixes, but things where you think there needs to be some kind of ongoing systemic change or issue to address. We just need to know what you think, so that we can incorporate that and attempt to incorporate that into the plans we're developing, or maybe even go after it and plan just based on the feedback we get from you. I mean, as an administrative team, some things become very apparent in terms of where we need to go and what we need to figure out, or what we need to implement. I mean, when you look at a lot of our discussions in developing this, systemically, the overall system has all the pieces of the puzzle. It's just how are we implementing those pieces, or is there a lack of consistency in what we're doing? So, I mean, working within the framework you've already created, we have the capacity to a much better job in terms of implementation itself. But what do you see? What do you think we need to work on? What kind of feedback? What do you want us to consider in our planning process? Are there things you want us to emphasize? I mean, it can be collectively, it can be individually. We just need to know, so that everybody at this table has a voice in our process, and we can try to address whatever issues you might have.
I have a quick feedback.
Sure.
I love, like I said, I love the calendar. I like the fact that after all these years, someone thought about, let's change this, make it better. I'd love to see the entire team look at everything and how can we make it better? I would love to see the Stoughton School be top 1% in the nation. And the only way we're going to do that is to question everything we've ever done and continue to do and see how we can make it better. Otherwise, we stay status quo forever. And I'd like to see a change for the better, and I think I'd love to see everyone in your team, Dr. Bayetta, to just look at everything that's currently being done in the school system and question it and determine if it's the best that we can do, or just take it apart and redo it. That would be my feedback.
Yeah, I think, just real quickly, I think, a number of years into this role, it's one of the first districts that has really tried to internally say, this is what we think, and now is asking the committee for some further input, and I'm sure at some point, community as a whole type of stuff. My evaluation that we agreed upon over 2 years speaks to us doing self-assessments, speaks to us getting, if you will, findings and reports and all of that give the committee and the superintendent a baseline for moving forward, which is, as we said, was going to take some time. I also think, directly to your question, that our triennial plan has to continuously push goals. And I think one of the things that the future should have is what are the school committee goals of the school committee? Right, so you guys are here with your goals, we're taking your goals and making sure that they're part of our goals, and then our goals as a district are part of our administrative goals and teacher goals. And they're SMART goals, so we have an ability to be able to target them in a way where we're looking for a specific detailed outcome, and not just, we did it and then we put it on the bookshelf, which is what happens with a lot of these reports. And that's one of the roles that Jonathan does, is to make sure that doesn't, and that's the reason why tomorrow at leadership, we'll be kicking off with the team. All right, you got the 36-page document, you've got the summation page, So now let's go back and let's really talk about the triennial plan and what it should look like, and we'll put everybody into teams. Everybody's got an opportunity to be part of that team. Some will really dive into it, some will be a little bit more laissez-faire about it, but the fact is we want to be able to do that and then share it with the staff and the community.
Good. Thank you.
I had some feedback, just quickly. Matt, for your consideration, some specifics around hiring systems, time to fill and time to hire stats might be helpful. Average tenure might be helpful to track. Staff diversity, and I mean that in all aspects. And staff, like worker voice, like feedback loops. But how much input, what would aspirationally we would like to see, how much do we want to see students and staff reflected in program design, program evaluation, staff, et cetera. Under curriculum, and I'm not 100% sure what to name this, but I would love to see something around parent engagement and communications, whether students are doing really well in a class, that'd be nice to know, but if students are doing poorly in a class, also nice to know before you get the term report card. That is one where I think the district could make some tremendous strides in consistency. So, but that was just my immediate, other than, love this, my immediate feedback. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Well, so if you review this, and we'll get the full report as some more reading material and
Great.
get back to you on that.
You'll get it tonight.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Related to that is superintendent evaluation kickoff. In some ways, this process has been in place for almost 2 years now, a year and a half or so. We're reaching the summative evaluation stage. Evaluating the superintendent is one of our key responsibilities. So over the next few months, Dr. Breda is going to present more of these self-assessments and evidence of his work towards completing the goals and the standards that he set at the beginning of his term here. And we'll use those materials and our own observations to complete our evaluations, which the chair will compile into composite evaluation for the committee to discuss and vote on in a public meeting. And that final evaluation will become a public document. So you have here kind of a discussion of the process from MASC. I know a couple of you are taking charting the course, so if you have questions about the evaluation process, that would be a great time to ask them. The MASC can always, provide another workshop or provide more support for us on that as well.
Yeah, just two items. One, I'll send you a hard copy of the goals that we've had for the 2 years, so you could just update yourself as part of the process that you'll be responding to. And then two, the timeliness of this is May, June. It's supposed to be voted on by June. Sometimes you can take it into your first meeting in September, but it's really up to you. But we do have two members that are not seeking reelection that I'm going to be seeking further information from them in terms of them giving input, since we have been working together roughly for 2 years by the time both Lindsay and Catherine leave. So we've spoken about this in general, and we want to do that as part of this process, because there'll be two members coming in who potentially, typically from April, May, June, would not be involved in the process. That doesn't mean they can't be. I've seen, we'll leave it at that. So we'll get that process underway as well. The idea is to get, you have to hold it as a public meeting to evaluate the superintendent. I'm the only employee in the town it's required. So setting up a date for all of that is important. Of course, I always always have for years, if there is something that the superintendent isn't doing to the level that you think he or she should be doing, in this case I would prefer to have the opportunity to improve than finding it just in my evaluation. But you can do whatever you want according to education reform. And then we go from there.
I do want to say thank you, Dr. Bayeda, for getting for it lasting long enough for us to do evaluation because Lindsay and I have started the process, but we have not finished it, so it is
A
exciting.
plus.
to me, yes.
Marguerite was, I believe,
The last one we,
the last one that has a formal
Evaluated,
paper
so.
trail.
That was unnecessary.
it's going to be, we will have a lot of questions and we'll work together to get to where we need to be. So this is kind of new to a lot of us, but we are excited to do this. So that, just keep this packet in your, for your information and we'll get on to that. The next item on the agenda is acceptance of minutes. We have a lot of minutes.
God.
And can I thank you all? I have not thanked you lately for all of your work and all of your attendance and your time at all of these meetings. And I would also like to thank our recording secretary for all of her work and her time. So, thank you all.
I'd like to thank Maureen, who's
Yes,
actually
and
here.
Maureen as well, who is, yes, does the exact same thing. So, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. A lot of work represented here. At this time, I'd like for amendments for the December 10th, 2024 minutes.
So I do not have an amendment to the December 10th, 2024 minutes, but I would like the minutes for this meeting to reflect some clarification.
Yes,
Um,
I had a question about this too.
Okay, so, and this is, the minutes for December 10th do accurately represent the statements made during public comment. So there's no amendment to the minutes. However, I want to make sure that the record for today's meeting reflects that those comments made during public comment are not accurate. Chapter 70 is not a grant. The Student Opportunity Act is not a grant. These funds are built into our Chapter 70 funding from the state. That comes back from year to year and does not create a deficit. I want to fact check myself here. Is that an accurate statement? And is there anything we would add there?
That is a 100% accurate statement.
Thank you. Okay, that is not an amendment. It is just a clarification for tonight's minutes.
Yeah, I would only add that the SOA funds are to level set, and that it is over the course of 7 years. So when there is a reference to an end date for SOA funds, there is an end date for SOA funds. But it's to bring us up to the level that we should be at to reflect the population that we are serving.
Correct.
I will add too that we clarified this at that meeting on December 10th.
I do have a couple of actual amendments to it. One is the spelling of Dawn Marie Fernandez's name. Her name is hyphenated, and I believe it is spelled with an S rather than a Z at the end of her name. So just wanted to correct the spelling of her name. And then on page 2, under number 4, B, it's actually a NASDAQ instead of NASDAQ. It's NES. Yes.
Although, that's been going pretty well too, so we might as well take it.
So,
Catch, I didn't
yes, NESDEC. And then I just wanted to add for, under 4D, that the Stoughton Police Department, along with Dr. Bader, are at the target for Shop with a Cop. That there was a reason why they were at Target. Yes.
Picked up for shoplifting, you know.
Public funds inappropriately.
Just thinking of superintendent evaluation, no.
So there's going to be a sting operation at Target.
Right. So, yes, that was a great event.
Yeah.
I have something for unfinished business whenever you're.
Okay, yes. So, any other amendments?
Go
All right.
ahead.
Yes.
and-
For December 10th.
December 10th.
Any other amendments?
Yes.
Yeah, the
Okay.
unfinished.
Oh, the
business.
unfinished business, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were
No,
were done
okay.
with yours yet.
Yes.
So on the Maria Julia Serpa Memorial Scholarship, so just similar to previous minutes.
Okay.
Where it says, and will be awarded to students of Portuguese descent who are pursuing a degree in education. I would like that to reflect all of what they wanted,
Okay.
or just don't put it in at all. Because I
Okay.
think you had mentioned, for brevity's sakes, you tried to shorten it. So either just put it in that it was the scholarship in memory of the teacher, or put in the entirety of what they were looking for that scholarship.
All right, we have the wrinkle of there are 2 other scholarships with these quick summaries, and so I think either we should be consistent, either we should have the full description for each of them, or we should just have nothing for them.
I would say just nothing.
Just nothing, okay.
Yeah, I think it's
So-
better than that ambiguous
Middle ground.
middle ground that can be construed as something other than what it was meant for.
All right, so we are striking the text for A, B, and 8, for 7A and B and 8A, and just recording the motions and the votes.
Are you?
I am, thank
Okay,
you.
sure. Thank you for addressing that elephant in the room. Under number 5, multilingual English language learner presentation, I just would love to get some names for, there's a lot of acronyms in here.
Okay.
So, you know, if we're going to use ELL, it's already in the title. We can just, after that, put parenthesis ELL. And then instead of ESL students, maybe just do ELL consistently. ILP makes it sound like it's a punishment because they were put on it, but, you know, independent learning plan.
Okay. So basically, you would prefer that we have the full term written out and then the abbreviation?
Yeah, it just, for anyone in the public who may be reading this, the more transparent we are and the less reliant on acronyms. Also, in the paragraph after that, I requested the average spending, I believe, per, more acronyms, SPED and ELL students, which are now one and the same. So I wanted to differentiate that from what was in the
Okay.
in the budget. And the last sentence of that first paragraph I'd like to strike. It is, that sentiment is noted later and much clearer. And rather than wordsmith that sentence, I'd rather just pull it out because that same point is made later.
The one that starts, Dr. Amy Quigley wants the school
No,
committee?
no, sometimes when students are pulled out of the classroom for services, they meet
Oh,
in the
okay.
hallways. It just seems like such a weird non sequitur.
Okay, oh, the paragraph above, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, okay.
Thanks for the clarification. And then I think, and I'm going to make this in another point, but on page 5, under policy review number 3, ECA, Chris Shannon requests to include dates when the policies were revised, and it says, or when the policy was adopted. I'd like to replace that with and.
And, okay.
And how nitpicky do we want to get? Can we remove the period from Niall's name in the 8th grade?
All right, we'll ask
I
about it.
feel Niall deserves that. There are other grammatical things, but those are the big ones.
All right. Any other amendments for December 10th? Do I have a motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 minutes as amended? So moved. That was made by Chris, a second.
Second.
Second by Lindsay, that's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's 5-0. The next is December 17th, 2024 minutes. Any amendments to that one? This is-
I do, and
Yes.
super quick on this
Okay.
one. It's the same one I just made.
right.
So page 3, under policy review ECA, school committee discussed including the date of adoption. I thought I pressed that stupid button.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Page 3, under SC policy review, ECA, the school committee discussed including the date of adoption and revision on the bottom of policies, just for consistency.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
I have just point of clarification first. So December 17th was a regular meeting of the
Yes,
school
it was.
committee, right? And then December 19th was that Thursday, and then December 30th was the Monday after the holidays, and both of
Yes.
those were special?
Those are both special.
Okay, so in
catch.
the, so I'll come back to those in those minutes, but on page 3 of the December 17th minutes, under number 4, both regarding the budget working group and the articles, it says it was postponed to the next, I would just take out the word regular, next school committee meeting.
Good catch.
Wow.
All right. I have one more little catch on page 2 under elementary school building committee updates, paragraph 3.1. The cost of the project was reduced by 1.25 million by changing delivery method from construction manager at risk to design bid build. And that was probably me not enunciating clearly, so. And then I just wanted to add, a healthy contingency was built into the article to account for changes in cost. Or actually should be in, just changes in costs, rather than any changes to the design itself. So, I'm gonna make that clear, so. Yes, it doesn't come back to us. Any other amendments for December 17th, the regular meeting? All right, do I have a motion to approve December 17th, 2024 minutes as amended?
So moved.
That was made by Lindsay, a second?
Second.
Second by Armando. It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's carried 5-0. 2 down, 2 to go. This is the December 19th, 2024 minutes, and as Lindsay has noted, this was actually a special meeting, so at the very top, it says regular, but it should say special. Other amendments for this one?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So in the bottom paragraph on the first page, Dr. Bayeda, I'm going to need your help with this one.
First sentence?
The first two. So reducing the budget to a 5.5% increase by cutting 15, parentheses, 14 FTEs, and then the next line, it's swapped. Do you see what I'm talking about?
It would be, yes, it would be 15 potentially 15 FTEs.
In the first line, and then the second line would be an additional 14.
Sorry,
It looks, it's just the parentheses in the word is
Yeah,
mismatched.
so the first one, to get to 5.5, we're looking at the potential of 14 FTEs.
Okay.
So that one's 14.
So it's 14 followed
And
by
then the
15.
second one would be 15 FTEs.
Okay, thank you.
To get to the 3.
So I think I would also add, so in that same line, now I can't read my notes, an additional 15 FTEs will need to be cut, not were cut. This hasn't been.
Will need to be, yeah.
Yeah, just to make clear on where we are in that process. And then in the line after that, I would just clarify, starting in the next sentence, the town requires a balanced budget. I would just say the town charter requires a balanced budget, just to make that clear. That is statute. That is not just somebody over at town hall. And then on the next page, in the third paragraph, the second sentence says 0 additional staffing was added to the budget. I would just add there, 0 additional staffing was added except for mandated positions in special education and English multilingual learners. Just to clarify, because I think we'll see.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I think that's it. Yes, that's it for me.
All right, any other amendments to the December 19th? All right, can I have a motion to approve? Oops, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
So, on page 1, under FY26 budget and articles, first paragraph, fourth line ends with how many, and the next line starts with how many. So I think we should cut one of the how manys. We don't, it's so many how manys. Too many how manys. And then in the following paragraph, halfway down, after the town charter requires a balanced budget by December 31st, 2024, the sentence that follows, it's part of that conversation in terms of what are the 3 potential avenues the town could take if we sent them a budget that was at 5.5%, and that's only one of the 3. So I think we should either have all 3 or just cut that sentence. I would lean toward cutting that sentence, but defer to the superintendent on that.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yep. So if you look at the 4th line down, that last paragraph, the town charter requires a balanced budget by December 31st, 2024. The next sentence, if these positions stay in the budget, that is sent to the town, then the town will cut the budget, which is not what you said.
Correct.
You said they had 3 options. That was an option.
Correct.
But there are 2 other options. So the question is, do we want to put all 3 options here? And is there a benefit to that in
No.
terms of, okay. And then if not, then I would cut that sentence.
meeting the town charter is the most important part of that.
Right, then I would cut that sentence.
And the select board doesn't have the authority to actually cut positions or
Right.
tell us that, so
Right.
this is confusing, it doesn't.
It's super confusing,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right, so we'll just cut that sentence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a quick one, not one that I get, but just because I don't want people to think that we have a lot of circuit breakers. The number 3 FY '26 budgets and articles, the line that starts the category budget offsets were added to show what money is coming from places like
Yeah,
circuit breaker. There's only one shelter, 8 fees and other grants.
okay.
I just want to make sure that people don't think we have multiple circuit breakers.
It's in our slush fund.
Yes.
Well, you said it, I mean,
All right, good catch.
My mic was not on.
neither was mine.
All right, so yes. All right, so if that's all for the December 19th minutes, do I have a motion to approve the December 19th, 2024 minutes as amended?
So moved.
All right, that's made by Lindsay, second.
Second.
Second by Chris. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. Almost done. All right, this is the December 30th, 2024 minutes, and again, this should say special instead of regular at the top. Anyone else have any? I have a couple here.
I have a couple. These ones are smaller. So under FY '26 budget discussion, first line, the district is looking at cutting positions in programming in order to meet the town's recommended 3.8% increase, not required. They can recommend, they cannot require. On the next page, just SOA in parentheses is missing the A, so it just clarified that. Yes. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph. The fifth paragraph, I know the way I said this at the meeting was probably confusing, but I want to make sure this is accurate. It says, the last sentence there, if the number of high-needs students grew after October 1st of 2024, these students will not be reflected in the amount awarded later this month. What I was trying to say is, I'm not even going to get into it, but just to make sure the minutes are accurate, that should be 2024, not 2023. And then this third paragraph from the bottom, it starts with federal grants. The last sentence there is, there was a plan to use free cash. I want to just revise that sentence to, the town had a plan to gradually reduce use of free cash in the budget, but it has been fully eliminated already. Does that
Yes.
make
that's
sense?
accurate.
Okay, we didn't have a plan. I just want to make sure it's clear who had the plan, and the plan wasn't eliminated. It was the free cash that was eliminated. And that's it for me. Okay.
I do want to add, on that same page, page 2, the second paragraph, the last sentence, we have not discussed a proposition 2.5 override, nor have there been cuts to school or town safety. Make sure that, I know that has sometimes come into play in these discussions, but.
Can I just add huge shout out and massive gratitude to our recording secretary, because I know that the budget conversations have moved really fast and had a lot of numbers and been really confusing, and I don't think I could do it, so just big appreciation to her.
Yes, very grateful for her, all of her work recently, especially during a busy month to get all these to us. Any other amendments, Krish?
Yep. First page, under FY '26 budget and articles, number 2 in the listed concern area, issues with Medicaid reimbursement. I just wonder if we could expand that a little bit, because I think that might be super confusing as to what that even has to do. It's just pulled out of context. I know it came from the superintendent.
Yeah, so this would be the issues with Medicaid reimbursement, and if I remember correctly, I noted that the numbers are low, that we're not collecting as much as we
are entitled to.
And exactly.
Correctly. So, yeah, so I would add that in, which I believe is partly an issue with staff capacity, correct?
Correct.
So that's also worth noting. So that was one. For my own clarification, on the second page, second paragraph, second sentence, people laid off in FY '25 were positions funded by federal grants. Is that accurate? I thought we
Correct.
had
So that would've-
paraprofessionals.
We did, but we brought them back, if you
Yes.
remember, on the
Yeah.
shelter front. So the final layoffs were the 17 intervention part-time,
Okay.
full-time positions
From
that were
ESSER.
funded from ESSER.
Okay, I just want to, I'm like, I missed that detail myself, so, but it was with money, so there you go. I'm like trying to figure out how, all right, the only other, I did want to clarify this. Third paragraph down, the one that begins with Stoughton strives, which I think should be our town motto from here on in. The sentence, second row, it is harder to hire teachers at lower salaries because there are fewer graduates coming out of college, is a little confusing. To say the lack of,
How about coming out of college and into teaching?
yes, thank you.
Madeline.
Yep. My brain stopped working, I think, 20
Yeah.
minutes
Spell my
ago.
name.
It's another very well done for
Yes.
Matt.
Yeah, indeed. And then the last sentence on that page, Chris Shannon suggested including a letter with the budget to the town, explaining what this budget represents. We're already doing that. I wanted to add, in terms of repeat, the cumulative impact of repeat budget cuts. I wanted to clarify that. Finique.
All right. Any other ones? All right.
I'll move that we approve the December 30th, 2024 special school committee meeting minutes as amended.
All right, that motion is made by Lindsay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Armando. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. Done with that? Yes. Hopefully the last little bit will be quick. Unfinished business, FY '26 budget and town meeting articles. Again, we're waiting on House 1, which is the governor's proposed budget, due out by the end of January. That will give us a good indication of what our foundation budget, our required minimal spending requirements set by the state will be, and what our Chapter 70 funding or state aid allocated would be. So that's still to be determined. Anything from the budget working group? We're kind of in a holding place.
I think we are. I think to Chris's point in the last meeting about the letter, I think the plan, if I am remembering correctly, is for the chair and the superintendent to put together a letter to go with the budget explaining some of the discussion at that meeting. Madam Chair, could we all send our input for said letter to you?
Yes.
To compile and drafting that?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, could you include the feedback I provided in the Google Doc you sent?
Will do.
All right, okay.
Will do.
Yes. That would be great if I could have it by the end, when are we trying to get this out?
If you can get it to you, and we can work on a draft by no later than, I would say, a week from this Thursday.
Okay, all right,
So like the 23rd, 24th.
Okay.
Somewhere like that, because
So
we'll
we'll-
turn around and
yes.
draft to the committee pretty quickly.
yeah. Once we know House 1, we'll have a little bit more of an idea, so, okay. Soon. With us. Redistricting of K through 5 elementary schools update, just our monthly reminder, or weekly reminder, whatever it is. Redistricting means redrawing the boundary lines for who goes to which elementary school, redistricting regardless of the final decision for the South School building due to increased enrollment across the town, and this will affect all elementary schools. We did have the redistricting committee meet last Thursday, January 9th. Dr. Bader has already mentioned that we have a working group set up to visit and evaluate modulars. We established the norms and discussed redistricting materials from 2 other towns, Andover and Norwood, and hope to meet with one of the superintendents to kind of discuss the process with them. I got some great ideas on what community feedback and community outreach kind of was appealing to us, and we're hoping to get more information on what worked for them, what didn't work. We also began kind of a discussion on possible restructuring. If we're gonna, as Armando mentioned earlier, why not consider all possibilities? The new building, if the new building passes and it is built, it has to be built as a K through 5. But even if it does pass, can we look at other options, K through 2, 3 through 5? So, Chris, I don't know if you want to add to that discussion, but.
Beautifully summed up.
Yes, so just look through all possibilities. And again, we want to make sure that we cover all bases. Maybe we come back and say, yeah, K through 5 is really the best option, but there are some really intriguing options to having a K through 2 and 3 through 5 in terms of their academic needs, social emotional needs, so definitely worth revisiting, so. Yes.
Yeah, there is one point, actually, because I brought it up at 2 meetings now. But one of the things that I've requested of the redistricting committee is a criteria for what successful redistricting would look like. So if school committee members not on that committee would like to provide some input or have any thoughts on what you feel a successful redistricting plan would look like, please provide it to myself or the chair. Before April.
Yes.
I'm looking at you.
Noted.
All right, anything else from that? South Elementary School building needs update, modular classrooms. Just want to reiterate, we're serious about the consideration of modular classrooms. No one wants them, but they may be our only option based on a couple of situations. We might need a modular classroom or maybe more at existing elementary schools. We're simply out of space. 2 of our schools are using the library as a classroom. Heaven forbid something happened to, say, the South School, and we need modular classrooms because an upcoming winter storm damages a roof or something like that. And then if the South School project does not go through succeed at special town meeting and townwide election, we need to close out South Elementary School, and we're looking at modulars at all of the remaining 4 schools. So these are serious considerations. There are multiple plans on the table. The redistricting committee has a subcommittee that will go visit them, but just want to make sure people are clear about that. Elementary School Building Committee update and responsibilities. We did not meet last Wednesday because instead we were presenting Article 1 for special town meeting to the Finance Committee. It passed with a 9-5 vote, and then it did pass the following day on Thursday. Was that municipal?
Intergovernmental relations.
Intergovernmental relations.
Is the one that it passed. And
Muni ops.
Mini-ops, municipal operations. So it has passed, and so it is moving on to special town meeting on February 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Stoughton High School. Again, there's an in-person community forum on the building project on Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 at 7 p.m. at Stoughton High School. Bring your questions about the project. I can post it as a joint meeting so that we can be there. If you would also like to join and hear feedback from the committee and that sort of thing. Anything else about elementary school project? Chris? Now we're on to unfinished business. Yes, other matter, yes.
Just a gentle reminder, I believe Matt had promised student counts, the trends in terms of student counts around ELL and SPED students and student-teacher ratios, as well as the spending per pupil trends. Gentle nudge, you're now down from very well to well.
Oh, not very well anymore.
Other matters, Select Board Member Deborah Roberts asked for feedback on the SEOC, the expansion proposal for the diversity committee. She would prefer that, she was actually looking for recommended revisions or other comments as well as questions. If you could send those to me by the end of the week, I will pass them on to her. If you need me to resend those, I can resend those out to her. I do not have any revised materials. It seems that what we got last time is what we have. So I can resend those to you, but it looks like it's pretty much the same thing for there.
Do you know if she received my feedback?
I believe she did.
Okay.
So.
Did I
will-
send that to you?
Yes, I will forward it all to her, just as a reminder. I did want to thank Armando for participating in the holiday parade of lights on behalf of the school committee. It was very cold. I know it was not the greatest thing. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to make it at the last minute, but I did want to shout out because I know that was not the warmest day.
Took one for the team.
Yes, took one for the team. Any other matters? All right, our next regular meeting is Tuesday, January 28th, 7 PM here in the conference room at the district offices of 31 Pierce Street. Don't forget the community forum for the elementary school building project, Tuesday, January 21st at 7 PM at the high school. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, made by Chris, second? Second. All right, give it to Lindsay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's 5-0. Meeting is adjourned at, what time is it?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, oh my goodness.